Chapter 2733. Xiao Chen's words made Dongfang Yun secretly heave a sigh of relief, but it also made Ancestor Hei's face sink. He originally planned to think of a way to persuade Xiao Chen to withdraw, even at the expense of compensating Xiao Chen. But who knew that Xiao Chen would refuse so bluntly? Even after hearing that he was willing to pay compensation, Xiao Chen chose to refuse without the slightest hesitation. Xiao Chen's answer surprised Ancestor Hei. Forcing himself to calm down, Ancestor Hei looked at Xiao Chen and said in a solemn tone, "Xiao Chen, there is no enmity between us. This is a matter between my Blackwheel world and the Hongfeng world. It has nothing to do with you. Why do you have to get involved? Even if there was a reason before, my Blackwheel sect is willing to compensate you. Is this not enough to satisfy you?" Ancestor Hei was still unwilling to give up. After all, facing Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun at the same time really put a lot of pressure on him. If he could persuade Xiao Chen to withdraw, it would naturally be the best result. He was prepared to bleed a lot for this. However, as soon as Ancestor Hei's voice fell, Xiao Chen directly said, "You are right. You're right, and I also believe that you're willing to compensate. But as I said just now, you're no longer qualified to negotiate. First of all, you don't have a hostage in your hands now. Secondly, do you think that the compensation you give is more than what Dongfang Yun and I will get from defeating the Blackwheel world?" Xiao Chen's words were true. How much compensation could Ancestor Hei give? When he and Dongfang Yun joined forces to defeat the Blackwheel sect, wouldn't the entire Blackwheel world be at his disposal? Wasn't this more tempting than Ancestor Hei's compensation? Xiao Chen obviously had no intention of being persuaded by Ancestor Hei. Even though Ancestor Hei had said that he was willing to pay compensation, Xiao Chen was still indifferent. In Xiao Chen's view, Ancestor Hei's compensation was not worth mentioning to him. Moreover, the arrow was already on the bow. How could it be so easy to make Xiao Chen retreat at this moment? Regardless of whether Ancestor Hei was framed by Aunt Mei or not, Xiao Chen would not care about this. Last night, Xianyuan Ling had asked him about this problem. At that time, Xiao Chen's reply was that even if Aunt Mei did it herself, even if it was a self-directed and self-staged show in the Red Wind world, so what? Everything was now on the Blackwheel sect's head. Therefore, Ancestor Hei's claim that he was innocent was meaningless to Xiao Chen because Xiao Chen did not care whether Ancestor Hei was innocent or not. He was just looking for an excuse to attack the Blackwheel world. Whether all of this was done by Ancestor Hei or not, to Xiao Chen, the person who took the blame could only be Ancestor Hei himself. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Ancestor Hei was taken aback. He wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Dongfang Yun. Dongfang Yun said with a gloomy face, "Old man Hei, things have already come to this point. What else do you want to say? Cut the crap and let's fight." Having said that, Dongfang Yun attacked without any explanation. Seeing this, the experts of the Red Wind world naturally rushed toward the experts of the Blackwheel world without hesitation. The battle broke out directly. Seeing this scene, Xiao Chen just shook his head and smiled. Dongfang Yun was really a little anxious. Xiao Chen could understand Dongfang Yun's anxiety. After all, she was also worried that he would be persuaded by Ancestor Hei. By then, things would be troublesome. The cooperation between the two sides was not close to begin with. They were only united because of benefits, which was different from the Great Thousand World and the Great World. However, Xiao Chen first told Dongfang Yun that she was thinking too much. Based on the current situation, Xiao Chen had no reason to tear up the cooperation between the two sides, because if they continued to cooperate, Xiao Chen and the Great Thousand World would be able to obtain more benefits. Book 8. Therefore, after Dongfang Yun attacked without any explanation, Xiao Chen also shouted softly, "Kill." Then, he took the initiative to join the battle and attacked Ancestor Hei together with Dongfang Yun. In this regard, Xianyuan Ling, Jun Weia, Long Qing, and the other experts of the Great Thousand World naturally did not hesitate to attack the experts of the Blackwheel World. As the World Lord of the Blackwheel World, Ancestor He had obviously become the #1 target of Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun. Therefore, when the two of them attacked, their target was Ancestor He. The two World Lords joined forces, and as soon as they exchanged blows, Ancestor He felt a huge pressure. This was not a simple matter of 1 + 1 = 2. Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun were both World Lords. Even if Shao Chun had just broken through to become a World Lord, his strength was still not to be underestimated. Moreover, Dongfang Yun's strength was not much weaker than Ancestor He's. In this way, the pressure that the two of them gave Ancestor He could be imagined. Dongfang Yun was obviously not willing to give Ancestor He the slightest chance, so she attacked with all her strength without holding back at all. Every move was a killing move, and Ancestor He was suffering. On the other hand, although Shao Chen's attacks were not as fierce as Dongfang Yun's, Ancestor He had no choice but to be on guard because Shao Chen's swordsmanship attack was extremely strong. If he was not careful, he might be injured. Fighting 1 against 2, Ancestor He realized that he had underestimated the situation. This was not a question of whether he could resist. Ancestor He now only felt that it was unknown whether he could survive under the joint attack of these two people. Sword Realm was directly displayed, crazily suppressing Ancestor He's movement. The terrifying sword Qi kept attacking Ancestor He himself, while Shao Chun held the dustless sword in his hand. The sword edge swept horizontally, and every sword was aimed at Ancestor He's vital points. Damn it! Ancestor He, who was fighting fiercely with Dongfang Yun, cursed secretly when he saw Shao Chen's sword slash. However, he could only turn his head to defend. For this, he even took a palm strike from Dongfang Yun. In terms of attack power, Shao Chen was definitely above Dongfang Yun. After all, sword cultivators were known for their powerful attack power. Not to mention, Shao Chen was a world lord. His swordsmanship could be considered as the pinnacle existence. Therefore, Ancestor He would rather be injured by Dongfang Yun than take Shao Chen's attack head-on. Moreover, Shao Chen also had Sword Realm, and the power of his attack was further enhanced. In order to guard against Shao Chen's attack, Ancestor He was hit by Dongfang Yun's palm strike. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his figure also staggered a few steps back. Ancestor He looked at Shao Chen with anger in his eyes and coldly shouted, "Shao Chen, do you really want to become enemies with my Blackwheel World?" Ancestor He was both angry and afraid of Shao Chen. However, in the face of his angry shout, Shao Chen only responded with the sword in his hand. He did not hesitate to slash out again. Ancestor He's brows twitched when he saw this. He had no choice but to continue resisting. There was no chance for him to take a breather. Chapter 2734. Shao Chen answered with his actions. Ancestor He couldn't do anything about it because Shao Chen didn't give him any time to breathe at all. If he was facing Shao Chen alone, Ancestor He wouldn't say anything. At worst, he would fight to the death. But now there was Dongfang Yun, who was eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. Ancestor He seemed to be a little powerless by himself. Shao Chen answered with his actions. Ancestor He couldn't do anything about it because Shao Chen didn't give him any time to breathe at all. If he was facing Shao Chen alone, Ancestor He wouldn't say anything. At worst, he would fight to the death. But now there was Dongfang Yun, who was eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. Ancestor He seemed to be a little powerless by himself. Not only that, but the situation of the other masters of the Blackwheel World was also very bad. Many of them had even fallen. It couldn't be helped. They had to face the attack of two universes at the same time. Many of the masters of the Blackwheel World were basically in a one versus many situation. As a result, such a situation naturally occurred. The situation was gradually developing in a one-sided direction, and Ancestor He had no way to reverse it. This was a huge gap in overall strength, and it wasn't something that could be reversed by human strength. No matter how strong the Blackwheel world was, it was impossible to fight one against many and deal with the attack of two universes at the same time. At this time, Ancestor He, who was dealing with the attacks of Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun with all his strength, hated Aunt Mei. If it weren't for Aunt Mei's actions, the Blackwheel world wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. If he could find Aunt Mei, Ancestor He swore that he would make her life worse than death. However, it was meaningless to say this now. As the masters of the Blackwheel world continued to fall, the situation was getting more and more difficult. At the beginning, it was only the End Realm. Dao Realm cultivators fell, and later, even the Emperor Realm masters were killed. As for the Ancestor Realm masters, they were still struggling to hold on with their strong vitality. However, this kind of perseverance obviously couldn't last for too long. If the situation continued to develop, the fall of the Progenitor Realm experts was only a matter of time. This was because the Progenitor Realm experts of the Blackwheel world were facing the same situation as Ancestor He. That was to face the joint attack of two Ancestor Realm experts from the Red Wind world and the Great Thousand world at the same time. 1 against 2, it was naturally difficult for two fists to fight against four hands. In the beginning, one might be able to persist, but as time passed, it would only become more and more difficult. In the end, one would be heavily injured or even killed. It was impossible to trade injury for injury, and it was even more impossible to trade life for life. The only thing he could do was to try his best to persevere. However, there was always a limit to such perseverance. Once that limit was exceeded, there was no other way. The situation of the war was firmly controlled by the vast Thousand world and the Red Wind world. The Blackwheel world had no chance of turning the tables, mainly because there was no way to reverse the situation. Unless a miracle happened, the outcome of the Blackwheel world was already set. At the same time that the war broke out in the Blackwheel world, the Macro world was also not calm. In the Cloud Palace of the Macro world, Shao Chun, Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, Li Tian and the others gathered in the main hall. Generally, in the Cloud Palace, unless there was a major event, everyone rarely gathered in the main hall. Moreover, not to mention the fact that everyone was gathered in the hall, everyone's expression was particularly solemn. Even the monk and the Taoist priest, who were usually serious, were silent. It was obvious that something big had happened. Sitting in the main seat, Lin Yun said expressionlessly, "What's the situation now? They have already entered the wormhole." Hearing this, Li Tian opened his mouth and replied. The reason why the Cloud Palace of the Macro world was so solemn was entirely because of the unusual movements in the Great Devil world. According to the news, Mo Hao of the Great Devil world had gathered the power of the entire Great Devil world and directly entered the wormhole leading to the Macro world without warning. Such a big movement naturally could not be hidden from the spies of the Cloud Palace. As for the movements of the Great Devil world, the Cloud Palace naturally did not believe that they were here for a vacation. To put it bluntly, they were launching a large-scale attack on the Macro world. As for why the Great Devil world suddenly made such a big move, the Cloud Palace did not know for the time being. However, in any case, the Cloud Palace absolutely could not turn a blind eye to this. Therefore, as soon as she received the news, Lin Yun had already transferred many of the Cloud Palace's experts to the Black Hole to defend it. Hearing Li Tian's answer, Lin Yun sneered, "Is Mo Hao planning to take revenge for last time? Such a large-scale operation can be said to be going bankrupt." Although Lin Yun was smiling when she said this, the coldness in her eyes became more and more vigorous. According to the news, Mo Hao's operation this time was not a small matter. Almost all the experts of the Great Devil world had gathered, as if he was staking everything on a single throw. This had far exceeded the scope of an ordinary conflict between two universes. It was a decisive battle of life and death in the true sense. Otherwise, why would Mo Hao bring so many people here? Obviously, he wanted to destroy the macro world in one fell swoop. Therefore, Lin Yun did not take this matter lightly. Hearing Lin Yun's words, Li Tian also nodded and said, "This time, the great devil world's actions are indeed strange. It's as if they have been stimulated by something. No matter what the result of this battle is, the loser will definitely suffer heavy losses. To launch a war of such a scale, it would be fine if they won, but if they lost, the foundation of the entire universe would be directly shaken." Therefore, Li Tian guessed that Mo Hao must have been stimulated by something. That was why he was staking everything on a single throw. However, Li Tian still did not know what had stimulated Mo Hao. During this period of time, the Cloud Palace did not do anything special, nor did they send anyone to the great devil world. It should not have stimulated Mo Hao. In that case, it could only be because of other reasons. Hearing Li Tian's words, Lin Yuan coldly snorted. "It doesn't matter what the reason is. If he wants to fight, then let's fight. Are we afraid of him?" Lin Yuan's consideration was not as detailed as Li Tian's. He did not care what Mo Hao was thinking. If he wanted to fight, then let's fight. In terms of strength, the Cloud Palace was not afraid of the Devil Abyss. Hearing Lin Yuan's words, Lin Yun did not answer. However, in the current situation, it was impossible to avoid the battle. Mo Hao had already entered the black hole. Moreover, with Lin Yun's character, how could she choose to escape when encountering such a situation? For the time being, they did not know the specific reason for Mo Hao's actions, but no matter what, the Cloud Palace had to counterattack. Immediately, Lin Yun stood up and said coldly, "There's no need to say anything else. Since Mo Hao wants to fight, then let's accompany him." Following Lin Yun's words, many experts of the Cloud Palace began to rush in the direction of the black hole, including Lin Yun, Lin Yuan, and the others. In the face of the large-scale attack of the Great Devil World, the Cloud Palace could be said to have done its best. There was no doubt that a war would break out between the two universes. Moreover, once such a war began, it was very likely that it would be completely out of control. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2735. For the time being, they didn't know why he would attack the outside world on such a large scale, but now wasn't the time to think about it. Since he had come in such an aggressive manner, Cloud Palace had to respond. They couldn't just let he charge in like that. For the time being, they didn't know why he would attack the outside world on such a large scale, but now wasn't the time to think about it. Since he had come in such an aggressive manner, Cloud Palace had to respond. They couldn't just let he charge in like that. Regardless of why he had come in such a large scale, Cloud Palace had responded immediately. Many of Cloud Palace's experts rushed to the black hole in the outside world, waiting for he and the other experts from the Great Devil World to appear. They didn't have to wait for long. Just one day later, he really led the experts from the Great Devil World to the outside world. Starships and spatial spirit boats from the demonic abyss rushed out of the black hole. When they saw this, Lin Yun, Lin Yuan, Li Tian, and the other higher-ups of Cloud Palace all had gloomy expressions. Just as the report said, he had indeed come in such a large scale that it seemed like he would fight to the death with the outside world. Faced with the increasing number of experts from the Great Devil World, both sides faced each other. At this time, he arrived on the deck of a spatial spirit boat and looked coldly at Lin Yun and the others from Cloud Palace. "Lin Yun, today is the day your Cloud Palace will be destroyed." "I'm afraid you're not enough," Lin Yun said calmly. He had staked everything on this attack, but Lin Yun didn't show any intention of backing down. As soon as the two of them finished speaking, he didn't waste any time and immediately gave the order to attack. For a time, the experts from the Great Devil World attacked the experts from the outside world. The two sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Lin Yun and he also fought fiercely. Both sides were locked in a fierce battle. The fierce battle also broke out in the outside world, but this was only the beginning. Almost at the same time, the Hong-Meng world and heretical sect also started a war for no reason. No one knew the specific reason. For a time, it was as if a war had broken out between the various universes. The two sides, which had once been able to restrain each other, seemed to have been possessed at the same time. They started a war in a frenzy. The flames of war spread to almost every universe. The flames of war could be seen everywhere, almost igniting everything. Shao Chun and the others did not know about the war in other universes for the time being. After several days of fierce fighting, the Blackwheel world had indeed suffered heavy casualties. Ancestor He had no choice but to retreat in the end, completely giving up control of the black hole to Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun. There was no other choice. In the face of the joint forces of Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun, the Blackwheel world was definitely no match for them. They could only choose to retreat. As a result, the black hole that led to and from the Blackwheel world was completely under the control of Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun. Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun didn't choose to pursue the Blackwheel sect's retreat. In their opinion, the Blackwheel sect was like a turtle in a jar. They couldn't escape at all, so there was no need to rush. With the black hole firmly under their control, the people of the Blackwheel world couldn't get out, and the people outside couldn't get in. As a result, it was only a matter of time before the Blackwheel sect was destroyed. Moreover, after the Great Battle, the experts of the Vast Thousand World and the Red Wind World had all suffered injuries. It was the best choice to temporarily rest and reorganize. They directly set up camp outside the black hole. Shao Chun and Dongfang Yun's intention was very clear. They would nibble away at the Blackwheel sect step by step, not giving them any chance. After the great battle, everyone was recuperating, including Shao Chun. Although Shao Chun didn't suffer any serious injuries, there was no harm in adjusting his state to the peak before the next battle. On this day, just as Shao Chun was recuperating, Xianyuan Ling took the initiative to come to him. Seeing that his face was somewhat solemn, Shao Chun asked curiously, "What's wrong?" "Something's not right," Xianyuan Ling said bluntly. Hearing Xianyuan Ling's words, Shao Chun didn't know what had happened at first. He waited until Xianyuan Ling spoke. "Apart from us, almost all the other universes have broken out in war. The Cloud Palace and the Demon Abyss, the Immortal Palace and the Heretical Sect, and the other universes are the same. Now the outside world is in complete chaos. War had broken out in all the universes, and it wasn't a small-scale conflict. It was a real life-and-death war, and almost all of them were fighting with all their strength. If it was only one or two universes that were fighting, it might not be strange. However, almost all the universes were in war at the same time. That was very strange. It was impossible that all the universes had simultaneously broken out at this time, right? It was too much of a coincidence. Hearing Xianyuan Ling's words, Shao Chun also had a premonition that something was wrong. He frowned slightly and said, "Did you find anything wrong?" "Not for the time being, but there must be something wrong," Xianyuan Ling replied. Fighting broke out at the same time. Who would believe that there was no inside story? Moreover, in Xianyuan Ling's heart, he felt that the war between the universes this time seemed to have been deliberately designed by someone. There seemed to be an invisible hand behind the scenes that was secretly controlling everything. At this moment, all the universes had become chess pieces. If that was really the case, then the matter was very serious. To be able to control all the universes and make all the universes break out in war at the same time, how much energy would that require? Moreover, based on the current situation, if such a war continued, it would bring great harm to any universe. Not to mention who would win in the end. Once such a war broke out, even if they won in the end, it would probably be a partial victory. Just the number of warriors sacrificed by the universes was probably unbearable. Remember the war between good and evil that broke out in the Great Thousand World? It was that kind of war that almost destroyed the entire Great Thousand World, causing more than half of the warriors of the Great Thousand World to die. If the war hadn't been ended in time, the warriors of the entire Great Thousand World would probably have died. Without warriors, the martial arts culture of the Great Thousand World would naturally suffer a devastating blow. This was the damage caused by an uncontrollable war. Now, the war between the universes was absolutely worse than the war between good and evil in the Great Thousand World. If this continued, it was estimated that the universes would eventually suffer a devastating blow. Not to mention the deaths of all the experts, even the martial arts culture would suffer a devastating blow. At that time, all the universes would probably return to the primitive era. The martial arts culture would be destroyed, and everything would have to develop from scratch. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2736. A fierce battle broke out between the various universes at the same time, and it was a battle of life and death. If this continued, the result would be absolutely devastating. When the time came, the various universes would probably be reduced to a living hell. In such a living hell, even world lords might not be able to escape. A fierce battle broke out between the various universes at the same time, and it was a battle of life and death. If this continued, the result would be absolutely devastating. When the time came, the various universes would probably be reduced to a living hell. In such a living hell, even world lords might not be able to escape. Don't think that this was an alarmist talk. This was definitely something that could happen. As long as the situation was out of control, it would inevitably lead to such a result. Just think about it, if the experts of the various universes all died in the battle, what would the result be? The younger generation of warriors would not be able to grow up, and the older generation of experts would be wiped out. Martial arts would degenerate completely, and everything would have to start from scratch. The development of the situation was completely different from what one imagined. This was no longer a matter of the vast thousand world, the Red Wind world, and the Blackwheel world, but the key to the survival of all the universes. After a long silence, Shao Qin asked in a heavy tone, "Can you find out what happened behind the scenes? Why did a war break out between the various universes at the same time?" Although the current vast thousand world did not seem to be affected by the war, under such a big environment, who could guarantee that the vast thousand world would remain unscathed? Therefore, Shao Qin immediately decided to temporarily slow down the attack on the Blackwheel world and let Xianyuan Ling arrange for people to investigate the secret behind this matter. He did not believe that all of this was a coincidence. No matter how coincidental it was impossible for the various universes to break out at the same time. Moreover, it was a battle of life and death. After hearing Shao Qin's words, Xianyuan Ling nodded in response. However, he did not know whether it would succeed or not. He could only try his best to see if he could find out the reason behind it. After explaining some things to Xianyuan Ling, Shao Qin immediately found Dongfang Yun and told him what he meant. Things are a little strange. There is a war breaking out between the various universes at the same time. I'm afraid there is a secret behind this. I want to temporarily slow down the attack on the Blackwheel world. Shao Qin told Dongfang Yun truthfully. Now, it was no longer a matter of destroying the Blackwheel world. Compared to the Blackwheel world, this matter was more important. Moreover, now that he thought about it carefully, the matter of the Blackwheel world seemed very strange. It was mainly Auntie May. Everything was started by Auntie May, but now, she seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. There was no way to find her. If there was really someone commanding Auntie May behind her, then could the person commanding Auntie May have something to do with the battles in other universes? In other words, it was the same person or group of people who had caused this situation. After hearing Shao Qin's words, Dongfang Yun neither agreed nor refused. She also felt that the situation was a bit strange, but she didn't want to give up on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Seeing that Dongfang Yun seemed to be hesitating, Xiao Chen said with some displeasure, "Now, things are far more complicated than we thought. If we insist on attacking the Blackwheel world now, even if we succeed in the end, what can we do? Under such circumstances, who do you think can stay out of it? The current situation couldn't be solved by taking down the Blackwheel world." After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Dongfang Yun finally nodded and said, "Well, let's do it this way for the time being." Dongfang Yun also knew that under such circumstances, compared to taking down the Blackwheel sect, finding out the truth behind the scenes was the most important thing. Otherwise, even if the vast thousand domains and the Red Wind world took down the Blackwheel world, so what? At that time, it would still be meaningless. Moreover, the battles in the various universes had caused all the rules to exist in name only. In a world without restrictions and rules, who could guarantee what would happen in the next second? For the time being, the rhythm of the attack on the Blackwheel world was slowed down. At the same time, Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun both sent people to investigate the truth behind all this. According to Xiao Chen, all of this seemed to be controlled by someone behind the scenes. Under the control of this person, the various universes broke out into battles at the same time. They did not continue to attack the Blackwheel sect. Along with Xianyuan Ling's investigation, more details were presented to Xiao Chen. The more Xiao Chen understood, the more he realized that the situation was far more serious than he had imagined. With the outbreak of the wars in the various universes, it could be said that there were heavy casualties. End Realm, Emperor Realm, and even Ancestor Realm powerhouses were killed and injured, and this was only the beginning. It was hard to imagine that if the war continued, the final result would probably be the death of all these powerhouses. The situation was much more serious than he had imagined, but what really made Xiao Chen angry was that so far, Xianyuan Ling had gathered the power of the entire Saint Palace, but they still hadn't found any clues. In this regard, Xiao Chen frowned and finally thought of a person. This person was Aunt May. The battle between the vast Thousand World and the Blackwheel world was instigated by Aunt May alone. According to his guess, Aunt May must have a motive for doing so. As an Ancestor Realm expert, Aunt May must not be as simple as she claimed to be. Therefore, her motive for doing so must have been instigated by someone behind her. If he could find Auntie May, would he be able to learn from her who the mastermind was? Who had started the war between the universes and turned the universes into a living hell? And what was his purpose for doing this? Aunt May had become an extremely important person, so Xiao Chen felt that he must find Aunt May. What? You want to go to the Blackwheel sect? He told Dongfang Yun his thoughts. In this regard, Dongfang Yun looked at Xiao Chen in shock. Xiao Chen wanted to find Aunt May, and judging from the current situation, Aunt May shouldn't have left the Blackwheel world yet. Therefore, Xiao Chen wanted to go to the Blackwheel sect and talk to Ancestor He. The two sides would temporarily cooperate, and everything would wait until he found Aunt May. He didn't expect Xiao Chen to have such an idea, but Xiao Chen said seriously, "You and I can't find out who the person behind the scenes is. The fastest way now is naturally to find Aunt May. I don't believe there's no one behind her. Think about it carefully. Almost everything was caused by Aunt May. As an Ancestor Realm powerhouse, how could she be so simple? If I say there's no one behind her, would you believe me?" Xiao Chen's words left Dongfang Yun speechless. Aunt May's actions were indeed very unusual, but Xiao Chen wanted to cooperate with Ancestor He, which was even more difficult for Dongfang Yun to accept. One had to know that they were still in a hostile state. Wasn't it nonsense to find an enemy to cooperate with? However, in this regard, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "As long as we have a common purpose, we can cooperate. Aren't you and I the same?" Chapter 2737. Now, Xiao Chen and Ancestor He were in a hostile relationship, But this did not mean that there was no possibility of cooperation between the two. As Xiao Chun said, as long as they had a common purpose, there was a possibility of cooperation. As for the previous hatred, to put it bluntly, as long as the benefits were great enough, these could be ignored. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Dongfang Yun fell into silence. Seeing this, Xiao Chun did not urge him, but quietly waited for Dongfang Yun's answer. In fact, Xiao Chun had already made a decision in his heart. Whether Dongfang Yun agreed or not, he had to go to the Blackwheel sect. Knowing that this matter was strange, he still wanted to jump into the pit. This was not Xiao Chen's character. After this period of investigation, Xiao Chun increasingly felt that everyone in the various universes had probably been set up. As for who the schemer was, Xiao Chun also had a rough guess in his heart, but it was not easy to say for the time being. After all, there were too many implications, and Xiao Chun was not familiar with the people in that place. He had only heard of it. The first thing he had to solve was to stop the battle in time. He couldn't let the person behind him succeed so easily. No matter what the person's goal was, he couldn't do what the other party expected. It was enough to understand this point. As for other things, he was afraid that he could only wait until he found Aunt May to come to a conclusion. After calmly waiting for Dongfang Yun's answer, Dongfang Yun finally said, "I will go with you tomorrow." Dongfang Yun did not refuse. In this regard, Xiao Chun nodded. Since they were going to cooperate, it was understandable that Dongfang Yun was present. In the face of a huge crisis, Dongfang Yun still rationally gave up his personal hatred. After all, this was a matter of great importance to the survival of all universes. Dongfang Yun could certainly distinguish which was more important. After reaching an agreement with Dongfang Yun, Xiao Chun returned to his spatial spirit boat. It was already late at night, but Xiao Chun did not rest. Instead, he contacted Lin Yun through the formation. He had always kept in touch with Lin Yun, but because he was in closed-door training to break through to the World Lord realm, the two had not seen each other for many years. However, 4 people at the level of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, a short 100 years was actually just a blink of an eye. The formation was activated, and soon, a phantom of Lin Yun appeared in front of Xiao Chun. On the other side, in front of Lin Yun in the Great World, a phantom of Xiao Chun also appeared. The two seemed to be talking face to face. "Congratulations, you have finally succeeded in reaching this step." Lin was Xiao Chun. Lin Yun was naturally talking about the matter of Xiao Chun becoming the world lord of the Great Thousand World. Now, Xiao Chun had become an existence on equal footing with Lin Yun. In this regard, Xiao Chun also smiled. "Isn't this destined? Haven't you always thought so?" Lin Yun naturally always thought that Xiao Chun would definitely become the world lord of the Great Thousand World. It was precisely because of this that Lin Yun spent so much effort to help Xiao Chun back then. It was also during that period of time that the two formed a deep friendship. At this time, hearing Xiao Chen's words, Lin Yun smiled and then changed the topic. "How is it? How's the investigation on your side?" When he first noticed that something was wrong, Xiao Chun had already contacted Lin Yun. According to their guesses, this matter was indeed very strange. Therefore, not only Xiao Chun, but Lin Yun also took the time to investigate. In the face of Lin Yun's inquiry, Xiao Chun shook his head and said, "There's no substantial breakthrough, so I contacted you to ask you for a favor." Xiao Chun did not find anything useful, and Lin Yun did the same. Xiao Chun immediately told Lin Yun about looking for Aunt May, hoping that Lin Yun could send Li Tian to the Blackwheel world. Li Tian was an array master, and Xiao Chun knew that Li Tian had a secret technique that used arrays to track others, so Xiao Chun wanted to use Li Tian's power to find the whereabouts of Aunt May. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Lin Yun also knew the importance of Aunt May. Without much hesitation, she nodded and said, "Okay, I'll send Li Tian out of the macro world immediately and go to the Blackwheel world." Now the macro world was fighting fiercely with the great devil world, but for Lin Yun, it was not difficult to send a person out. Even if he knew, he could not stop it. After agreeing to Xiao Chen's request, Lin Yun suddenly frowned and said, "By the way, if what you said last time is true, then the matter is really serious." Xiao Chen had a suspect for a long time and told Lin Yun about it. The two had discussed it for a while, mainly because Xiao Chen's guess was too shocking. Moreover, once Xiao Chen's guess was proved to be true, then the seriousness of the matter would probably exceed everyone's expectations. Therefore, Lin Yun did not dare to make a conclusion easily. It was too important, and there was no room for the slightest mistake or misjudgment. Hearing Lin Yun's words, Xiao Chen's expression also became serious. "I know, but I said that this is just a guess. We have to wait until we find Aunt May, but after all, we have to prepare for the worst. If it's true, what do you plan to do?" Hearing this, Lin Yun asked, "What about you?" Faced with Lin Yun's inquiry, Xiao Chen did not answer and asked a question instead. The two of them looked at each other. After hearing each other's words, after a moment of silence, the two of them replied almost at the same time, "It's better to die in glory than to live in dishonor." This was the answer of the two of them. It was completely the same. Hearing each other's words, the two of them laughed loudly. As soon as the laughter fell, Lin Yun took the initiative to speak. "All right, that's it. I'll get Li Tian to come over as soon as possible. If there's anything, you can just instruct him directly." After saying that, Lin Yun ended the call, and Xiao Chen also let out a sigh of relief. Although Lin Yun did not show too much just now, Xiao Chen could tell that Lin Yun was obviously more worried than him. Because according to Xiao Chen's guess, if this was really the case, then the consequences would only be even more serious. Moreover, Lin Yun knew more about that place than Xiao Chen and was more aware of the horror of that place. Therefore, as soon as Xiao Chen said this, Lin Yun had already realized the seriousness of the matter. However, everything was still just a guess, and there was no substantial evidence to prove anything. After letting out a sigh of relief, Xiao Chen whispered softly, "I hope I'm just overthinking it." After saying that, Xiao Chen also entered into cultivation. He would go to the Blackwheel sect early in the morning tomorrow to discuss the cooperation. Xiao Chen was not too worried about this because Ancestor He had no reason to refuse. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2738. After a night of silence, Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun went to the Blackwheel sect early in the morning. After a night of silence, Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun went to the Blackwheel sect early in the morning. There weren't many people going to the Blackwheel sect this time. Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun each brought 2 progenitor realm experts, while Xiao Chen was accompanied by Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing. They went all the way to the continent where the Blackwheel sect was located. Just as they entered the continent, Ancestor He and a group of experts from the Blackwheel sect blocked their way. Ancestor He looked at Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun with a gloomy face and said, "Do you really think you can defeat me? Are you really that arrogant?" It could be seen that Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun had only brought a total of 4 progenitor realm experts. With such a small number of people, Ancestor He's first impression was that Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun simply did not put him in their eyes. Given the current relationship between the two sides, Ancestor He naturally couldn't guess Xiao Chen's intention. However, Xiao Chen didn't care about this and said flatly, "I'm not here to start a war with you today. I have some things to say. Let's find a quiet place and talk." Ancestor He's eyes flashed with suspicion when he heard Xiao Chen's words. He didn't know what Xiao Chen had to say to him. However, since Xiao Chen was willing to talk, Ancestor He naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, compared to Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun, Ancestor He was most likely the one who was most willing to stop the war. It should be known that Ancestor He was facing a joint attack from 2 universes at the same time. Ancestor He was most eager to negotiate a truce, so he agreed to Xiao Chen's proposal without much hesitation. Moreover, in order to make Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun not suspicious, Ancestor He didn't set the location of the negotiation in the Blackwheel sect. Instead, he found an uninhabited mountain peak nearby, and the three of them started the negotiation. There were 3 praying mats, a short table, and a pot of tea. After the 3 of them sat down, Ancestor He faintly said, "Speak. What do you have to say?" "Our intention is to stop fighting here and find Aunt May first." Hearing that, Xiao Chen spoke bluntly. None of them were inexperienced brats, so there was no need to beat around the bush. Regarding this, Ancestor He was puzzled. Xiao Chen had stopped the battle for no reason and even wanted to look for Aunt May. This made Ancestor He suspicious. Because the black hole had been sealed by Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun, Ancestor He naturally had no way of knowing what had happened in the outside world recently. He also didn't know that in fact, other than the Blackwheel world, other universes were also in chaos at this time. Seeing Ancestor He's appearance, Xiao Chen said without the slightest change in expression, "Some changes have happened in the outside world. The people of various universes have broken out in a war at the same time. It's too strange. It's as if there's an invisible hand controlling everything behind the scenes. Therefore, the most important thing now is to find Aunt May. I suspect that there must be someone behind Aunt May, and that person is the mastermind behind all of this." Xiao Chen told Ancestor He the truth simply and clearly. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Ancestor He frowned slightly and fell into silence. If what Xiao Chen said was true, Ancestor He knew that the matter was probably very serious. It was almost impossible for the experts of all universes to break out in a war at the same time. Since the birth of the world, such a thing had never happened. Ancestor He was also very clear about the result of such a chaotic war. Therefore, what Xiao Chen said was not alarmist talk. Ancestor He fell into deep thought. In this regard, Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun did not disturb him and quietly waited for Ancestor He's reply. Time passed by minute. After about a quarter of an hour, Ancestor He came back to his senses. He personally poured 2 cups of tea for the 2 of them and said, "If what you say is true, then this is equivalent to the extinction of a race. The final result of a battle of this scale can only be the deaths of all the living beings in the world. There is almost no one who can control all of this. Even if there is, it can only be the people of that place." Ancestor He had obviously thought a lot and had his own guesses. Moreover, it was indeed very appropriate to describe the current situation as a genocide. After all, wars were breaking out in all universes. If this was not a genocide, then what was it? One should know that at the end of such a war, the number of deaths would definitely be an astronomical figure. It was unimaginable, and as Ancestor He said, there was almost no one who could control all of this in this world. Even world lords like Ancestor He, Xiao Chen, and Dongfang Yun couldn't have the ability to control all of this unless the world lords of all universes united. But obviously, this matter had nothing to do with the world lords. Otherwise, the 3 of them wouldn't be sitting here to negotiate. However, if it wasn't a world lord, who else could do this? Ancestor He naturally thought of that place. In other words, except for that place, there was no one else who could have this ability. But that place wasn't right either because it wasn't an iron bucket. When one side took action, the other side couldn't be indifferent. Knowing where the place Ancestor He was talking about was, Xiao Chen nodded slightly and said, "There is no evidence yet, and you know the seriousness of this matter, so you can't speak carelessly. At present the key is to find Aunt May. I believe that as long as we find her, then the person behind her will be able to surface." Aunt May was the only clue Xiao Chen could grasp at the moment, and this woman definitely hadn't left the Blackwheel world yet. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Ancestor He also knew that this matter was of great importance and couldn't make wild guesses. Otherwise, it was likely to lead to a worse outcome. Nodding, he agreed with Xiao Chen's idea. After a moment of silence, Ancestor He opened his mouth and said, "Okay, then let's stop for now. Let's find that bitch first." Ancestor He naturally didn't have the slightest good impression of Aunt May. He even wanted to burn her bones and scatter her ashes. Now that Xiao Chen proposed to find Aunt May together, Ancestor He had no reason to refuse. Moreover, finding Aunt May was beneficial to all three of them. Even when Dongfang Yun mentioned Aunt May, his eyes flashed with extreme coldness. Ancestor He nodded and agreed to Xiao Chen's proposal. The three sides finally reached a cooperative relationship, and the point of cooperation was Aunt May. The three sides had joined forces to find Aunt May. An ancestor powerhouse could attract the full search of the three great universes. It had to be said that this had never happened in the history of the three great universes. It was unknown how Aunt May, who was hiding in the dark, would feel if she learned of this news. Would she feel honored or would she feel terrified? Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 2739. On a certain level, Aunt May had indeed created a record. Perhaps even in all the universes, there had never been a progenitor who had received such treatment. She had been treated so seriously by the three universes, and in order to find her, they had even spared no expense. On a certain level, Aunt May had indeed created a record. Perhaps even in all the universes, there had never been a progenitor who had received such treatment. She had been treated so seriously by the three universes, and in order to find her, they had even spared no expense. However, if Aunt May knew about this news now, she would probably be terrified. No matter who she fell into, Xiao Chen and the other two, she would not have a good ending. Needless to say, Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun hated Aunt May to the core. The only one who was slightly better was Xiao Chen. However, Aunt May had kidnapped Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. Xiao Chen obviously would not let her go easily. After reaching a consensus, Ancestor He looked at Xiao Chen and said, "But how do you plan to find Aunt May? I have already sent people to search for the whereabouts of that bitch, but in the end, I still found nothing." It was not that Ancestor He had not looked for Aunt May, but even after exhausting all means, he still could not find her. This was a blow to Ancestor He. It was indeed shameful that the Blackwheel sect could not find anyone in the Blackwheel world. In this regard, Xiao Chen replied, "We are waiting for a person who can help us find Aunt May. The premise is that she is still in the Blackwheel world. That's for sure. Since that bitch disappeared, the black hole has been under my control. Later, it fell into your hands. As long as you don't let that bitch escape, she must still be in the Blackwheel world," Ancestor He said coldly. "We haven't even released a single fly." Hearing those words, Dongfang Yun said in a somewhat displeased manner. Ancestor He did not say much. Since it was confirmed that no one had left the Blackwheel world, Aunt May should still be in the Blackwheel world. In this case, it was a trap. Seal the only entrance to the Blackwheel world, wait for Li Tian to arrive, and then search for Aunt May's whereabouts. Even if he had to dig 3 feet into the ground, he had to find Aunt May. After agreeing on the next course of action, Xiao Chen and the other two quickly turned hostility into friendship. The three parties also reached a truce agreement. In the end, Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun left, and Ancestor He returned to the Blackwheel sect. For the time being, the Blackwheel sect would search for the whereabouts of Aunt May, while the experts of the Vast Thousand World and the Red Wind World were responsible for sealing the black hole of the Blackwheel world to prevent anyone from escaping. It would be best if the Blackwheel sect could find Aunt May directly. However, if the Blackwheel sect couldn't find her in the end, then they would wait for Li Tian to arrive and use his means to determine her whereabouts. Xiao Chen was very confident in Li Tian. After all, he was the person who had the deepest understanding of formations among all the people Xiao Chen knew. Even the current master of the Sacred Palace's talisman sect, Chu Ming, couldn't compare with Li Tian in terms of formations. In this way, the three parties stopped fighting, and the Blackwheel sect once again began to search for Aunt May. This time, the movement was even bigger than the previous time. Last time, because they had to face the joint attack of the Vast Thousand World and the Red Wind World, the Blackwheel sect seemed to be a little anxious when searching for Aunt May's whereabouts. Moreover, it didn't last for too long. After all, the Vast Thousand World and the Red Wind World were the biggest worries of the Blackwheel sect at that time. But now Ancestor He, Xiao Qin, and Dongfang Yuan had reached a truce agreement, and the three parties had successfully reached a cooperation. As a result, the Blackwheel sect had enough energy and time to search for Aunt May's whereabouts. 19th floor literature. It could be said that they had dug 3 feet into the ground. In the memory of everyone in the Blackwheel world, the Blackwheel sect seemed to have never searched for the whereabouts of anyone at all costs. But this time, the Blackwheel sect seemed to have gone mad. It seemed that they wouldn't give up until they found Aunt May. While the Blackwheel sect was wantonly searching for Aunt May's whereabouts on a continent of the Blackwheel world, in a sect called Black Rock Mountain. This sect could only be regarded as an ordinary sect in the Blackwheel world. It was inconspicuous, but its strength was not bad, at least on this continent. However, it couldn't rise to the level of the entire Blackwheel world, let alone affect the other universes outside the Blackwheel world. At this time, in a beautiful courtyard at the back of Black Rock Mountain, a middle-aged man and a middle-aged woman were sitting opposite each other. The man was the sect master of Black Rock Mountain, and the woman was his wife. However, at this time, the man's face was full of worry. He looked at the woman and said, "What should we do now? The Blackwheel sect has searched such a large area. If they find you, it will be troublesome." "Don't worry, they won't find me." Hearing this, the woman replied rather calmly. The woman in front of them was none other than the missing Aunt May. However, at this time, her appearance was completely different from before, and there was no trace of disguise. This started with a set of secret techniques that Aunt May had mastered. This set of secret techniques was obtained by Aunt May during a fortuitous encounter when she was young. Its only use was to change one's bones and skin to change one's appearance. This was not an ordinary disguise technique. It was basically equivalent to changing one's appearance. The reason why Aunt May was able to escape the Blackwheel sect's search this time was because of this secret technique. Moreover, in order to hide this time, Aunt May had obviously made full preparations. First of all, the wife of the sect master of Black Rock Mountain did not appear out of thin air. Instead, from the beginning, Aunt May had found a woman to cover up her identity. Then, Aunt May used a secret technique to replace the woman's identity. It could be said that Aunt May's identity was flawless. Even if the Blackwheel sect investigated Black Rock Mountain, it would be impossible to find anything. This was because not only her appearance, but even her aura was completely different from before. Most importantly, Aunt May did not tell anyone about this secret technique, so even Ancestor He did not know that she had such a method. Hearing Aunt May's words, the sect master of Black Rock Mountain breathed a sigh of relief. This was indeed the case. In the following period of time, although the Blackwheel sect did their best, they still did not find any clues about Aunt May. Even when the people of the Blackwheel sect had investigated Black Rock Mountain, they did not have the slightest suspicion and just let Aunt May go. However, just as the Blackwheel sect was empty-handed, Li Tian finally arrived at the Blackwheel world after traveling thousands of miles from the macro world. Xiao Qin personally greeted Li Tian. Seeing Li Tian's spatial spirit boat fly out of the black hole, Xiao Qin took the initiative to greet him with a smile. "Brother Li Tian, I have been looking forward to seeing the stars and the moon all day long. Finally, you have come." Chapter 2740. There had been no progress in the Blackwheel sect's search, and Aunt May seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Now that Li Tian had finally arrived, Xiao Chen was naturally very happy. After all, finding Aunt May was very likely to reveal the mastermind behind her actions, which was very important to Xiao Chen. There had been no progress in the Blackwheel sect's search, and Aunt May seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Now that Li Tian had finally arrived, Xiao Chen was naturally very happy. After all, finding Aunt May was very likely to reveal the mastermind behind her actions, which was very important to Xiao Chen. Facing Xiao Chen's smiling face, Li Tian also said with a smile, "Brother Xiao Chen, you're flattering me." Xiao Chen was no longer the same as before. As the saying goes, a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. After not seeing each other for 100 years, Xiao Chen had already become a world lord like Lin Yun, dominating a part of the universe. In terms of strength, he was even stronger than Li Tian. However, Xiao Chen did not care about this. Back then, he got along well with these people from the Cloud Palace. Therefore, even though Xiao Chen was now the world lord of the vast thousand world, his attitude towards Li Tian had not changed. Xiao Chen personally welcomed Li Tian and brought him to his spatial spirit boat. Originally, Xiao Chen wanted to let Li Tian rest for a day. After all, the journey from the vast thousand worlds to the Blackwheel world was very long. Xiao Chen was also afraid that Li Tian would be too tired. However, Li Tian directly shook his head and refused. "Brother Xiao Chen, you're underestimating me. This is nothing. Let's start as soon as possible. Tell me about the current situation." Xiao Chen did not say anything else. In front of Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing, Xiao Chen roughly described the situation to Li Tian. If Xianyuan Ling was the brains of Sacred Palace, then Li Tian was the brains of Yun Palace. Moreover, compared to Xianyuan Ling, Li Tian was clearly more mature and meticulous. From a certain perspective, Li Tian was indeed stronger than the current Xianyuan Ling. Therefore, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Li Tian looked at Xianyuan Ling and smiled. "Brother Xianyuan, what do you think? The most important thing now is to find Aunt May first. After confirming some things, we can make the next step." Hearing this, Xianyuan Ling said bluntly, "Right now, everyone had their own guesses. However, these were only guesses and did not have any substantial effect. Moreover, these guesses alone could not prove anything. Therefore, finding Aunt May became the key." Xianyuan Ling did not dare to jump to conclusions. Regarding this, Li Tian nodded slightly, agreeing with Xianyuan Ling's words. This matter was of great importance, and it was indeed better to be careful. Turning his head to look at Xiao Chen, Li Tian continued, "Brother Xiao Chen, I need some items that Aunt May has used before. It would be best if they were personal items." Li Tian could use the array to track Aunt May's tracks, but he needed items that Aunt May had used before. The more personal the items were, the better. This way, he could more accurately pinpoint Aunt May's location. Xiao Chen nodded. It shouldn't be too difficult to find Aunt May's personal items. Whether it was Ancestor He or Dongfang Yun, they should be able to find these items. After all, Aunt May had lived in both places before. Xiao Chen immediately sent a message to Dongfang Yun and Ancestor He, telling them that he needed some personal items that Aunt May had used before. Dance God ebook. After receiving Xiao Chen's message, Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun quickly responded. Not long after, Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun personally came over. They first greeted Li Tian, then the two of them took out some of Aunt May's personal items. Unfortunately, the items that the two of them found were not Aunt May's personal items. Aunt May's personal items had probably been taken away by her, so Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun were unable to find them. Feeling somewhat helpless, Xiao Chen also asked Li Tian, "How is it? Will these things work?" Since there were no personal items, Xiao Chen also asked Li Tian if it would work. Regarding this, Li Tian pondered for a moment before saying, "It's possible, but with just these, I estimate that we can only pinpoint her approximate location." At most, we can only pinpoint her to a radius of 100 miles. With these things, it was impossible to directly find Aunt May's location, but they could narrow down the range to a radius of 100 miles. Hearing this, Ancestor Hay said in a deep voice, "This is enough. As long as we can ensure that she is within a radius of 100 miles, this old man will definitely find her, even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground." The area of the entire Blackwheel world might be very large, but if the entire area was reduced to a radius of 100 miles, then it would be completely different. For Ancestor Hay, a radius of 100 miles was something that he could find with his eyes closed. If he still couldn't find her, then he and the experts of the Blackwheel sect should really knock their heads against a wall and kill themselves. Ancestor Hay was full of confidence. At present, it was indeed impossible to find any other personal items of Aunt May. After everyone nodded in agreement, Li Tian began to construct the formation. Li Tian's secret technique was actually not complicated, but there were many restrictions. Moreover, it also consumed a considerable amount of Li Tian's spirit. Therefore, when performing it, every step must be done carefully. Once it failed, it could not be performed again for a short period of time. Under the cover of the formation, Aunt May's personal items slowly rose into the air. Then, they were directly melted by the power of the formation, forming a mass of white gold liquid in the air, emitting a faint light. This mass of white gold liquid gradually formed the shape of a bird. After the bird took shape, Li Tian said with a pale face, "Follow it. It can lead you to Aunt May." This bird could lead Xiao Chun and the others to the approximate location of Aunt May. Hearing this, Xiao Chun did not talk nonsense. He just directly instructed Xian Yuanling, "Take good care of brother Li Tian." Then, he, Ancestor Hay, and Dongfang Yun followed the bird and left. As long as they had the approximate location, it would be fine. Moreover, Xiao Chun, Ancestor Hay, and Dongfang Yun did not bring anyone else. What a joke! If 3 world lords could not catch Aunt May, then it would be the biggest joke in the world. The 3 of them set off and followed the bird all the way into the Blackwheel world. Looking at the direction the bird flew, Xiao Chun and the others confirmed their previous guess. Aunt May had not left the Blackwheel world and had been hiding somewhere in the Blackwheel world. However, the Blackwheel sect had no way to find out the specific location of Aunt May. The bird's flying speed was not fast. Therefore, it took several days for Xiao Chun and the others to follow the bird to one of the continents in the Blackwheel world. At a certain place on this continent, the bird stopped. After circling a few times in the sky, it directly shattered. Obviously, this was the specific location of Aunt May's hiding place. Moreover, it was not more than 100 miles away. Where is this? Xiao Chun and Dongfang Yun were obviously not as familiar with the Blackwheel world as Ancestor Hay. Therefore, both of them looked at Ancestor Hay and asked. Chapter 2741. The scope had been reduced to a radius of 100 miles. If they still couldn't catch Aunt May, it would be ridiculous. Facing Xiao Chun and Dongfang Yun's inquiry, Ancestor Hay said bluntly, "There are no other cities or sects within a radius of 100 miles, except for Black Rock Mountain." Hearing Ancestor Hay's words, Xiao Chun and Dongfang Yun were stunned. If that was the case, there were even fewer choices, or it could be said that there was no choice at all. The answer was obvious. Aunt May must be in Black Rock Mountain. However, Black Rock Mountain was a large sect. The experts of Blackwheel sect must have come to Black Rock Mountain before, but why didn't they find any trace of Aunt May? Perhaps he guessed what Xiao Chun and Dongfang Yun were thinking. Ancestor Hay blushed. Yes, the experts of Blackwheel sect must have searched Black Rock Mountain before, but they didn't find anything. In other words, Aunt May might have been hiding under the eyes of Blackwheel sect. What did this mean? It meant that Blackwheel sect was incompetent. They had searched Black Rock Mountain, but they didn't find Aunt May. This made Ancestor Hay very unhappy. Immediately, Ancestor Hay contacted the experts of Blackwheel sect and asked them to come immediately and seal off the entire Black Rock Mountain. No one was allowed to enter or leave. It was confirmed that Aunt May was in Black Rock Mountain. After contacting the experts of Blackwheel sect, Ancestor Hay, Shao Qin, and Dongfang Yun directly arrived at Black Rock Mountain. Perhaps he hadn't experienced the arrival of 3 world lords, so when Ancestor Hay, Shao Qin, and Dongfang Yun appeared, the sect master of Black Rock Mountain was obviously shocked. Not only him, but many of the higher-ups of Black Rock Mountain were the same. In the main square, with the appearance of Shao Qin and the other 2, Black Rock Mountain shook. Shao Qin and Dongfang Yun also spread out their divine senses at the first moment, enveloping the entire Black Rock Mountain to ensure that no one could escape. Needless to say, the divine senses of world lords were very powerful. There was no problem in enveloping a small Black Rock Mountain. Ancestor Hay shouted angrily, "Sect Master of Black Rock Mountain, come out!" Ancestor Hay clearly did not have the slightest good impression of Black Rock Mountain because they had sheltered Aunt May and even made him lose face in front of Shao Qin and Dongfang Yun. Following Ancestor Hay's furious shout, the Black Rock Mountain sect leader and a group of upper echelons naturally appeared. Many of them appeared somewhat panicked, while Ancestor Hay furiously shouted, "Your Black Rock Mountain dares to harbor Aunt May, do you know your crime?" Hearing Ancestor Hay's furious shout, a trace of panic flashed across the Black Rock Mountain sect master's eyes. This scene was clearly seen by Shao Qin, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor Hay. In an instant, the 3 of them were even more certain that Aunt May was definitely in the Black Rock Mountain and that the Black Rock Mountain sect master knew her whereabouts. In an instant, Ancestor Hay was unable to restrain his anger. The news of the Black Wheel sect searching for Aunt May could be said to be known by everyone in the Black Wheel world. Regarding this, the Black Rock Mountain actually dared to harbor Aunt May privately and even deceive the Black Wheel sect's search. They were simply courting death. Taking a step forward, Ancestor Hay instantly appeared in front of the Black Rock Mountain sect master. He grabbed the Black Rock Mountain sect master's neck and forcibly lifted him up. He coldly asked, "Speak, where is Aunt May? If you dare to hide anything from me, I will make you wish you were dead." Ancestor Hay was truly furious. However, the Black Rock Mountain sect master still shook his head and denied, "No, I did not hide Aunt May." He still refused to admit that he had hidden Aunt May. Hearing the Black Rock Mountain sect master's reply, the coldness in Ancestor Hay's eyes intensified. He immediately pointed his finger and a trace of spiritual energy instantly entered the Black Rock Mountain sect master's body. Immediately, the Black Rock Mountain sect master screamed in pain. As the ruler of the world, Ancestor Hay's spiritual energy was extremely tyrannical. After entering the Black Rock Mountain sect master's body, it wantonly wreaked havoc. In an instant, the Black Rock Mountain sect master's meridians were destroyed. The intense pain caused the Black Rock Mountain sect master to howl in pain. However, even so, he still insisted that he had not hidden Aunt May. Unexpectedly, the Black Rock Mountain sect master was a tough nut to crack. Even after being tortured by Ancestor Hay, he still refused to speak the truth. In this regard, the anger in Ancestor Hay's heart burned even brighter. He completely ignored the Black Rock Mountain sect master's screams and swept his gaze across the people of the Black Rock Mountain sect. His expression was cold as he spoke. "I want to see how long you can be so stubborn. Also, I want to see if everyone in the Black Rock Mountain is as stubborn as you." The actions of the Black Rock Mountain sect had already caused Ancestor Hay to sentence them to death in his heart. Therefore, in the future, there was no need for the Black Rock Mountain sect to exist in the Black Wheel world. Furthermore, in order to capture Aunt May, he would rather kill 1,000 innocents than let a single one go. This was Ancestor Hay's decision. Hearing Ancestor Hay's words, everyone in the Black Rock Mountain sect broke out in cold sweat. Looking at the Black Rock Mountain sect master's appearance, they were all afraid. Unfortunately, Ancestor Hay did not waste any time with them. By the time the experts of the Black Wheel sect arrived, the Black Rock Mountain sect had been sealed off. Everyone in the Black Rock Mountain sect had been tortured as if they were crippled. Of course, the original Aunt May, who was now the wife of the Black Rock Mountain sect leader, was also in this group. However, what was unexpected was that the people of the Black Rock Mountain either didn't know or were really stubborn. Even after being tortured until they were unrecognizable, no one revealed the whereabouts of Aunt May. Obviously, Ancestor Hay was unwilling to see such an outcome. He was certain that Aunt May was in the Black Rock Mountain sect, but he was still unable to find her. This made Ancestor Hay very angry. At the same time, the Black Wheel sect had also carefully investigated every disciple of the Black Rock Mountain sect and found that they did not disguise themselves. The entire Black Rock Mountain sect seemed to have no problems. If it wasn't for Li Tian's formation and the expression of the Black Rock Mountain sect master at the beginning, even Ancestor Hay and the others would have thought that there was a mistake. But now Ancestor Hay, Xiao Qin, and Dongfang Yun were very sure that Aunt May was in the Black Rock Mountain sect. However, they did not know what method she used to hide from everyone. Xiao Qin and Dongfang Yun naturally participated in the screening of the numerous disciples and experts of the Black Rock Mountain sect. Even the two of them did not find the slightest bit strange. For several days in a row, there was not the slightest tension. Ancestor Hay's patience was exhausted. He stayed in the prison of the Black Rock Mountain sect all day long, constantly torturing and interrogating, trying to find Aunt May's whereabouts. He used all kinds of methods and investigated the identities of all the disciples of the Black Rock Mountain sect. There was no problem. He knew that Aunt May was hiding in the Black Rock Mountain sect, but he could not find her whereabouts. This made Ancestor Hay's heart more anxious and his anger more and more vigorous. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. End of chapter. Chapter 2742. The anger in his heart continued to rise like an erupting volcano, constantly needing to vent his anger. Ancestor Hay was currently in such a state. He couldn't find the whereabouts of Aunt May. He knew that she was hiding in the Black Rock Mountain, but he couldn't find her. This made Ancestor Hay extremely angry. The anger in his heart continued to rise like an erupting volcano, constantly needing to vent his anger. Ancestor Hay was currently in such a state. He couldn't find the whereabouts of Aunt May. He knew that she was hiding in the Black Rock Mountain, but he couldn't find her. This made Ancestor Hay extremely angry. Therefore, Ancestor Hay would torture the experts of the Black Rock Mountain almost every day. Those disciples had already died under the torture of the Black Wheel sect. To be honest, the Black Wheel sect's methods were very cruel. Moreover, because of Ancestor Hay, the entire Black Wheel sect was like a madman. They used all kinds of methods to torture the people of the Black Rock Mountain, resulting in many disciples of the Black Rock Mountain being tortured to death. Such methods were definitely not honorable. However, Xiao Qin and Dongfang Yun didn't stop them. The reason was very simple. Aunt May was too important. They would rather kill by mistake than let her go. They didn't stop Ancestor Hay from using all kinds of methods to torture these people. At the same time, Xiao Qin and Dongfang Yun also used their own methods to find Aunt May. On this day, what was unexpected was that one of the higher-ups of the Black Rock Mountain finally couldn't bear the torture of the past few days and opened his mouth to reveal Aunt May's whereabouts. This news made Ancestor Hay overjoyed. At the same time, Xiao Qin and Dongfang Yun, who received the news, quickly came to the cell of the higher-ups of the Black Rock Mountain. This higher-up of the Black Rock Mountain was the vice-sect master of the Black Rock Mountain. His position in the Black Rock Mountain was definitely very high. Moreover, he and the sect master of the Black Rock Mountain were fellow disciples. Naturally, he knew many secrets that others didn't know. He was also very clear about Aunt May's whereabouts. At first, he gritted his teeth and was unyielding. However, under the constant torture of Ancestor Hay, his entire person had completely collapsed. He couldn't help but speak of Aunt May's whereabouts. Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun came to the cell of the higher-up of the Black Rock Mountain. Ancestor Hay asked when he saw the two of them. "Speak, speak, or I'll kill you." To this high-ranking member of the Black Rock Mountain, death was perhaps a rare release for him. Therefore, when he heard Ancestor Hay's words, he stammered. Aunt May is the sect master's wife." Sect master's wife? Hearing this, Xiao Chen, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor Hay were stunned. The three of them were no strangers to the sect master's wife. They had interacted with her a lot recently. Even Ancestor Hay had used all kinds of torture methods on her. However, the three of them didn't find anything wrong with her, nor did they find any trace of disguise. With a cold glint in his eyes, Xiao Chen looked at the higher-up of the Black Rock Mountain, and said indifferently, "Do you know the consequences of deceiving us?" Xiao Chen felt that it was inconceivable, so he deliberately said this. However, the higher-up of the Black Rock Mountain said bluntly, "I'm a person who wants to die. Why would I deceive you? The reason you couldn't find out is because that woman has cultivated a superb secret technique. She can change her appearance. The previous sect master's wife was also prepared by this woman in advance, so there's no problem with her identity." He slowly told Xiao Chen and the others the reason why Aunt May could hide so well. Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded slightly to Ancestor Hay and Dongfang Yun. Since there was a clue, the target naturally shifted to the sect master's wife. However, he couldn't kill this person now. It wouldn't be too late to send him on his way after confirming Aunt May's identity. "You better be telling the truth. Otherwise, I'll make you suffer 10,000 times more." After coldly throwing down these words, Ancestor Hay and the others directly left and went straight to the sect master's wife's cell. As the sect master's wife, she was naturally the focus of Ancestor Hay. When Xiao Chen and the others arrived at Aunt May's cell, they saw that she was also tortured to the point of unbearable pain. As soon as Xiao Chen entered the cell, he smiled and said, "Aunt May, it's really not easy to find you." Without the slightest preamble, he immediately said this. While speaking, Xiao Chen had been observing Aunt May's every move. Sure enough, after hearing his words, Aunt May immediately reacted. Although she quickly concealed it, it was still detected by Xiao Chen. Under normal circumstances, a person's first reaction was the most realistic. And Aunt May's reaction just now allowed Xiao Chen to confirm that the woman in front of him was the Aunt May he was looking for. "I don't know what you're talking about." Aunt May still had no intention of admitting, as she weakly said. She naturally wouldn't admit her identity. However, this time, it wasn't something that could be deceived by pretending to be ignorant. Xiao Chen already had an answer in his heart and naturally wouldn't allow her to deceive him like this. Slowly walking in front of Aunt May, Xiao Chen squatted down and looked at Aunt May, who was covered in wounds. His voice was calm and gentle as he said, "Since we've already found this place, there's no need for you to continue hiding. It's better for everyone if you tell me. Otherwise, you should know what the consequences will be." Aunt May didn't reply to Xiao Chen's words. Instead, she fell into silence. Seeing this, Xiao Chen didn't say anything else. With a flick of his finger, a sword aura directly entered Aunt May's body. Immediately, Aunt May was lying on the ground and frantically struggling. After Xiao Chen's sword aura entered Aunt May's body, it quickly turned into countless sharp thorns that wildly attacked Aunt May's internal organs, limbs, and meridians. These attacks weren't enough to take Aunt May's life, but they caused her great pain. This was definitely the first time Aunt May had experienced such pain in her life. The seemingly simple sword aura directly pulled Aunt May into the depths of hell, making her experience the most painful thing in the world. Xiao Chen's expression did not change much as he looked at Aunt May, who was wailing and rolling on the ground. Xiao Chen had experienced far too many things in his life. A scene like this was no longer enough to make Xiao Chen feel too much. Moreover, Xiao Chen would not be soft-hearted towards someone like Aunt May. Right now, Xiao Chen only wanted to know if there was someone behind Aunt May. If there was, who was that person? Getting up, Xiao Chen calmly looked at Aunt May and said indifferently, "Don't worry, this sword aura won't kill you. Think about it carefully. We'll come again tomorrow at this time. I hope you'll be able to give me an answer then, and I'll give you a quick death." With that, Xiao Chen left with Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun, leaving behind Aunt May, who was in a state worse than death. She struggled and wailed in the cell alone. From the looks of it, she was clearly in great pain. "Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." Chapter 2743. The sword aura that Xiao Chen had sent into Auntie May's body would not have harmed her life, but it would have continued to torment her without any signs of stopping. Looking at Auntie May's current state, one could tell just how much pain she was enduring, and this was only the beginning. Unless Xiao Chen was willing, the sword qi would never dissipate in Aunt May's body. It was like a maggot that constantly gnawed at Aunt May's body. Xiao Chen didn't continue to ask because he knew that a person like Aunt May wouldn't give in when she was on the verge of collapse. So, even if he asked her something now, Aunt May probably wouldn't answer, just like before. Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun obviously knew what Xiao Chen meant, so they didn't say anything and left with Xiao Chen. But before leaving, Ancestor He ordered several experts of the Blackwheel sect to keep an eye on Aunt May and not let anything happen to her. Now that the first step was successful and Aunt May's identity was finally confirmed, the next thing to do was to pry open her mouth. Along the way out of the dungeon, Xiao Chen wasn't willing to use this method, but now was a critical time and he couldn't care less. He could only ask Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun, "Does Aunt May have any relatives?" That's right, Xiao Chen wanted to use Aunt May's relatives to threaten her and force her to speak. Although this method was a little despicable, it was often very effective, especially for those who were bent on seeking death. After all, these people weren't afraid of death, but if their families were threatened, it would be different. It was very likely that this was their weakness. Unfortunately, the result disappointed Xiao Chen. Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun shook their heads and said, "This bitch is all alone. She doesn't have any family in this world at all." Ancestor He had thought of this method long ago. Previously, he wanted to use Aunt May's family to force her to reveal herself, but after some investigation, he found out that this bitch didn't have any relatives at all. As for the Black Rock Mountain sect master, although Aunt May pretended to be his wife, they weren't real husband and wife. So, it was obviously unrealistic to use the Black Rock Mountain sect master to threaten Aunt May. It seemed that he had to start with Aunt May herself. In this regard, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Come and take a look tomorrow morning." He could only think of a way to pry open Aunt May's mouth. Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun nodded slightly in agreement with Xiao Chen's opinion. A day passed quickly. When Xiao Chen and the other two came to the prison cell the next day, Aunt May was lying on the ground like a pile of mud. She could no longer make any sound, but her body would tremble from time to time. A day and night of continuous torture was indeed unbearable for Aunt May. Xiao Chen arrived before Aunt May and took the initiative to disperse the sword qi in her body. In such a situation, Aunt May would not be able to speak even if she wanted to. It temporarily relieved Aunt May of her pain. At this moment, Aunt May was like a person walking in the desert who suddenly saw a lake. After a long drought, she felt indescribably comfortable. However, this comfort was obviously only temporary. If she didn't say anything, what awaited her was only more cruel torture. "Do you want to speak now?" Xiao Chen asked calmly. Aunt May still did not react at all to Xiao Chen's words. Xiao Chen did not waste any more words. He flicked his finger again, and 2 strands of sword qi entered Aunt May's body this time. With the entry of the 2 strands of sword qi, Aunt May, who was already like a living corpse, cried out once more. It seemed that she was in even more pain than before. That was only natural. Xiao Chen had sent 2 strands of sword qi this time. Xiao Chen did not care whether Aunt May would listen to him or not. He only spoke indifferently as he watched Aunt May struggle in pain again. Don't think that you can get used to this kind of torture, because I can make it worse every time. Yesterday there was only 1 sword qi that targeted your physical body, but today there are 2 sword qi, and one of them is going straight for your soul. It will be like a bone scraper, and it will stimulate your soul bit by bit. Think about it carefully. I will come again tomorrow. Xiao Chen still had no intention of asking. When dealing with someone like Aunt May, the more impatient you appeared, the more you might fall into her trap. Seeing Aunt May struggling on the ground, even Ancestor Hei's eyes flashed with shock. He did not expect Xiao Chen's methods to be so vicious. He also did not say anything and followed Xiao Chen out of the prison. However, on the way, Dongfang Yun said, I didn't expect you to be so cruel. It's a special time. There's no other way. We don't have time to waste with her. Hearing that, Xiao Chen said without any change in his expression. It was as if what had just happened was not done by him at all. Xiao Chen's calmness made Ancestor Hei and Dongfang Yun think that he was a cold-blooded and heartless person. Or it could be said that Xiao Chen's heart had been tempered 1,000 times and would not be moved by such a thing. Xiao Chen did not care about what the 2 of them were thinking. Another day passed. On this day, when Xiao Chen and the other 2 came to the prison, Aunt May was still wailing. Although her voice was hoarse, the intense pain still made Aunt May unable to help but wail. This day was definitely the longest day Aunt May had ever spent. The double torture of her body and soul made every day feel like a year for Aunt May. Every second felt incomparably long. It was still the same as yesterday. First, he scattered the 2 sword energies in Aunt May's body, allowing her to relax for a short time. It was like the feeling of a person who was about to go against the current and suddenly being pulled up. Unfortunately, this was not saving her, but the beginning of the next round of torture. However, this time, Aunt May was clearly unable to withstand such torture. She had learned her lesson. Before Xiao Chen could speak, Aunt May had already taken the initiative to say, I'll talk, I'll talk. Xiao Chen's methods had truly made Aunt May feel fear. Thus, before Xiao Chen could ask, Aunt May had already taken the initiative to speak. Dongfang Yun and Ancestor Hei smiled when they heard that. However, Xiao Chen's expression remained unchanged as he asked, It's good that you've thought it through. Tell me, who is the person behind you and what is his goal? Actually, you should have guessed it even if I don't say it, right? It's not that I don't want to say it, but that I can't. Even if I say it, what can you do? Could it be that you can contend against those old fellows in the origin world? Aunt May was still lying on the ground. She did not even have the strength to sit up. However, she calmed herself down and roared with all the strength in her body. Her voice was very unnatural. However, the expressions of Xiao Chen and the other 2 changed when they heard that. So it was really like that. Please add, please vote, please recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 2744. Aunt May's words were filled with mockery and disdain. It was as if she was saying, Do you want to know the truth so badly? But what could they do even if they knew? That was the truth. In fact, Xiao Chen and the others had already guessed it, but they didn't dare to believe it. Or rather, they didn't want to believe it. It made sense when they thought about it. Apart from the primogenitors of the origin world, who else could instigate a war between the universes at the same time? Perhaps even world lords like Xiao Chen and Lin Yun couldn't do it. They had guessed it before, but their hearts still sank when they learned the truth. The truth was really related to the origin world. However, this wasn't good news for Xiao Qin and the others. Although Xiao Qin had never directly come into contact with the origin world, it didn't stop Xiao Qin from knowing how powerful the origin world was. As the origin of this world, it could be said that everything in this world and the thousands of universes were derived from the origin world. The primogenitors were also known as the original life forms of this world. They were born together with the origin world and were truly immortal existences. Perhaps no one had a direct impression of how powerful the primogenitors were, but there was no doubt that the primogenitors were definitely stronger than the world lords. This was an absolute fact. With such a powerful origin world, it should have been the protector of this world. At the same time, it should have been the faith of all living beings. However, the origin world had inexplicably instigated a war between the universes. This made Xiao Qin and the others confused. The people behind Aunt May were the primogenitors of the origin world. Everything she did was instructed by the primogenitors of the origin world. Although Aunt May hadn't really met the primogenitors, she had always been following their orders. This also explained why Aunt May had betrayed the Red Wind world and the Black Wheel world. After all, the people who had ordered her were the primogenitors. This explained everything. But what was the primogenitors' purpose in doing this? What benefits would they gain by instigating a war between the universes? Looking at Aunt May, Ancestor Hay asked, "Speak, what is the goal of the primogenitors? Why did he want to incite a war between the various universes? What was his goal?" This was the most important thing. However, upon hearing Ancestor Hay's words, Aunt May let out a mocking laugh. "Heh, do you think I would know about this? I'm just a chess piece. Does a chess piece need to know the reason? All you need to do is follow orders," Aunt May said bluntly. In response, Ancestor Hay's expression darkened. "Do you think that I will believe you? Believe it or not, it's up to you. We've already come this far. Do you think I have anything to hide?" Aunt May said with a smile. Hearing Aunt May's words, Xiao Qin, who had been silent all this while, frowned slightly. He did not doubt Aunt May's words. Since she had chosen to speak, it should be true that she did not know the reason. Moreover, why did the ancestor need to explain things to Aunt May? It was just as Aunt May had said. In the eyes of the primogenitors, Aunt May was probably just a chess piece. There was no need to explain so much to a chess piece. Therefore, Xiao Qin believed that Aunt May was telling the truth. Moreover, since they had already come this far, Aunt May indeed had no reason to lie. From Aunt May, he only knew that the people behind this were the primogenitors of the origin world. Apart from that, there was nothing else. However, as for why the primogenitors were doing this, Xiao Qin and the others would have to find the answer themselves. Aunt May was no longer of any value. Xiao Qin turned around and left the cell after saying that. "Give her a quick death," Xiao Qin said. Since Aunt May had told him everything she knew, there was no need for Xiao Qin to continue torturing her. She had followed the primogenitor's orders to kidnap Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. She had even deliberately brought Dongfang Lin and the others to the Great Thousand World in order to complete the primogenitor's orders. As for the purpose of doing this, she really wanted to provoke a war between the Great Thousand World, the Red Wind World, and the Black Wheel World. However, Aunt May did not know the reason. From the beginning to the end, Aunt May had fully demonstrated her value as a chess piece. She had only followed orders and did not know anything else. After Xiao Qin left, Ancestor He obeyed Xiao Qin and did not continue torturing Aunt May. He simply gave her a quick death. After dealing with Aunt May, Xiao Qin, Ancestor He, and Dongfang Yun sat in a small courtyard on the Black Rock Mountain. The scenery in the courtyard was not bad, but the three of them were not in the mood to appreciate it. They frowned slightly. The origin world had become very strange at this moment. The origin world, which was supposed to be the holy land in the hearts of all warriors, had become mysterious in the hearts of Xiao Qin, Ancestor He. What did the primogenitors want to do? This question had been lingering in the minds of Shao Qin, Ancestor He. How is it? Do you have any clues? After a long silence, Dongfang Yun was the first to speak. She had thought of many possibilities, but she could not explain why the origin world had done this. Hearing Dongfang Yun's words, Shao Qin and Ancestor He shook their heads. Obviously, the two of them did not understand this question. Since he could not figure it out, Shao Qin stood up and said with a solemn face, "Forget it. It's useless to make wild guesses. I think it's better to think of a way to end the war in the other universes. No matter what the origin world's goal is, it's obviously not good to start such a war." Since he could not figure out the secret hidden in this matter, he did not want to think about it. He had to solve the war in the other universes first. Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun nodded in agreement. They both felt that Shao Qin's words made sense. Originally, he thought that after finding Aunt May and learning the truth, the alliance between the three parties would probably collapse. However, he did not expect that after learning the truth, the alliance between Shao Qin, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor He would become more and more close. The more the three of them knew, the more they understood the seriousness of the matter. This could be a disaster that could destroy everything. Therefore, they had to stop it from happening. When the nest is overturned, no egg will remain intact. It was impossible for the three of them not to understand such a simple principle. Therefore, the three parties had to unite and stop the war from continuing. This was something they had to do. Otherwise, the flames of war would burn them. Dongfang Yun and Ancestor He nodded in agreement. Shao Qin also nodded and said, "Then let's set off as soon as possible. No matter what, we have to stop all of this. Please add, please vote, please recommend." End of chapter. Chapter 2745. They were certain that all of this had been planned by the primal ancestors of the origin world. However, Shao Qin and the others couldn't figure out why they had done all of this for the time being. After all, with the origin world's status, they didn't need to interfere with the matters of the other universes, and they wouldn't covet the resources of the other universes. Therefore, Shao Qin and the others couldn't figure out why the primogenitors were doing this. Since they couldn't figure it out, they simply stopped thinking about it. The most important thing was to stop the war before them. Shao Qin, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor He didn't have any objections. They already knew that someone was manipulating everything from the shadows, so they had to stop everything from happening. For a time, Shao Qin, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor He's alliance became even closer. That day, the three of them left Black Rock Mountain. Of course, before they left, Ancestor He ordered the destruction of Black Rock Mountain. From then on, Black Rock Mountain would no longer exist in the Blackwheel world, and none of the disciples of Black Rock Mountain would survive. Although Ancestor He's actions were cruel, Shao Qin and Dongfang Yun didn't say anything. After all, this was a private matter of the Blackwheel world. How Ancestor He wanted to deal with Black Rock Mountain was his business. Shao Qin and Dongfang Yun were far from being at odds with Ancestor He over Black Rock Mountain. The Black Rock Mountain had been destroyed because they had sheltered Aunt May. Furthermore, very few people knew about this matter. It could be said that most of the people in the Black Rock Mountain were innocent. But so what? They were fish on the chopping block, while others were on the chopping block. In that case, they could only be slaughtered. After leaving Black Rock Mountain, the three of them quickly gathered the experts under their command and left the Blackwheel world. Dongfang Yun brought the experts of the Red Wind world, Ancestor He brought the experts of the Blackwheel world, and so did Shao Qin. However, before they left, Shao Qin still asked several Sacred Palace experts to escort Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao back to the Great Thousand World. Next, the three of them had to stop the war between the universes. Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao weren't safe with them, and Shao Qin didn't know what would happen in the future. Therefore, sending them back to the Great Thousand World was a necessary decision. However, the two brothers were naturally unwilling to do so. Despite their protests, Xiao Chen chose not to do anything about it. It's still too early for you to get involved in these matters. Go back and accompany your mother, they miss you very much, Xiao Chen said and ordered people to take away Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. Indeed, what happened next wasn't something that Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao could get involved in. Even Xiao Chen wasn't confident that he could protect them, so there was no benefit for them to stay by his side. After sending off the two brothers, Xiao Chen, Dongfang Yun, Ancestor He and the others quickly set off for other universes. Hundreds of spaceships and spatial spirit ships sailed out of the Blackwheel world and rushed into the boundless starry sky. In the lead spatial spirit ship, Xiao Chen, Ancestor He, Dongfang Yun, Li Tian, Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and some other ancestor experts sat together. Of course, only Xiao Chen, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor He were qualified to speak. Where are we going now? Dongfang Yun asked while looking at Xiao Chen and Ancestor He. Now that a war had broken out between the various universes, it was crucial which universe to go to first. Xiao Chen said without much hesitation, "Let's go to the Great World first." Xiao Chen chose the Great World as his first target because of his relationship with Lin Yun. Since he wanted to stop the war, Lin Yun's side was naturally a better choice compared to others. Li Tian's eyes flashed with a smile when he heard that. Xiao Chen's decision was obviously the same as what he had thought. Dongfang Yun and Ancestor He didn't have any objections to this. Ancestor He just said indifferently, "Cloud Palace? Not bad indeed. Lin Yun's strength is top-notch even among all the world lords. Freeing her will indeed be of great help to us." Although Ancestor He wasn't familiar with Lin Yun, he wasn't a stranger either. After all, her strength was there for all to see. As a world lord, no one would dare to underestimate Lin Yun. With a goal in mind, the group rushed directly to the Great World. Facing the alliance of the three universes, no one dared to stop them along the way. The three universes were enough to crush everything. While Xiao Chen and the others were rushing to the Great World, the war in the Great World had already reached its climax. Just as Lin Yun and the others had guessed at the beginning, Mo was determined to have a life-and-death battle with Cloud Palace this time. Although both sides had suffered great losses after several battles, Mo still didn't have the slightest intention of retreating. Each battle was more tragic than the last. Whether it was Cloud Palace or Demon Abyss, both sides suffered heavy casualties. After a battle that had just ended, Lin Yun, Lin Yuan, and the others gathered together. Everyone was injured to varying degrees, but because everyone's cultivation wasn't low, their injuries weren't too serious. Sitting on the main seat, Lin Yun asked calmly, "Li Tian hasn't encountered Xiao Lai yet?" Li Tian had been sent to the Blackwheel world by Lin Yun. He should have arrived by now. Lin Yun didn't know how the situation was in the Blackwheel world, and whether Xiao Chen and the others had found Aunt Mei and gotten an accurate answer. She had been in contact with Xiao Chen before, but those were just guesses. Moreover, at this time, to be honest, Lin Yun didn't have the energy to think about these things. Mo seemed to have gone crazy. He was going to fight Cloud Palace to the end, even if it meant perishing together with them. Therefore, compared to other things, Lin Yun first had to consider how to deal with Demon Abyss. The other matters could only be left to Xiao Chen and the others. After Xiao Chen's matter was over, Xiao Chen would bring people to the Great World according to their agreement. Hearing Lin Yun's words, Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others shook their heads, indicating that they hadn't received Li Tian's message. Regarding this, Lin Yun didn't ask any more questions. She then said in a cold tone, "Those who are injured should prepare healing elixirs. I'm afraid this battle won't end so easily." Many people from Cloud Palace were injured, and some of them were even seriously injured. Not to mention those who died, Lin Yun asked for a guarantee of the supply of healing elixirs for those who were injured. She couldn't let these injured people die because they didn't have enough healing elixirs. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. As the palace master of Cloud 9 Palace's Medicine Palace, Lu Tao solemnly nodded and promised. Chapter 2746. Such an intense series of battles naturally consumed an astronomical number of pills. Even with Cloud Palace's rich wealth, they couldn't afford it. But there was nothing they could do about it. As long as it was a war, it was bound to be like this. Without enough healing pills, those who were injured wouldn't be able to receive treatment immediately. What followed was a vicious cycle of fighting with injuries and being killed directly. Therefore, healing pills could be said to be very crucial in a battle. This was also why an overlord force like Cloud Palace had its own specialized alchemist. After Xiao Chen established the Sacred Palace, he also established the Alchemy School. These alchemists might not have strong combat strength and could be said to be the weakest among those of the same level, but their role was irreplaceable. Without pills, their explosive power was equivalent to being born weaker. Cloud Palace had a specialized medicine palace, so healing pills weren't too scarce for the time being. Therefore, when he heard Lin Yun's words, Lu Tao, as the medicine palace master, nodded firmly in response. The battle could break out at any time. Lin Yun and the others didn't dare to relax in the slightest. On the Great Devil World side, He could be said to have used all the forces at his disposal to attack the outside world. At this time, his situation wasn't good either. In the Great Devil World's camp, He sat in the middle of a spatial spirit ship with an ashen face. He knew that Cloud Palace was a difficult bone to chew, but he didn't expect that the casualties would still be so high. Based on the current situation, the casualties on Devil Abyss side were definitely higher than Cloud Palace's. Although the gap wasn't too big, if this continued, Devil Abyss wouldn't be a match for Cloud Palace. In particular, the palace masters of the 9 palaces above Cloud Palace were all very strong. They were almost firmly suppressing the experts on Devil Abyss side. They couldn't continue fighting like this, but He had no intention of retreating. This time, no matter what price he had to pay, he would make Lin Yun pay the price. He's eyes flashed with killing intent. He didn't move in the slightest because of the losses he had suffered. He gritted his teeth and said, "Lin Yun, you've gone too far. Even if both sides suffer, I won't let Cloud Palace have an easy time." No one knew what had made He so angry, but it was definitely not a small matter. Otherwise, He wouldn't have insisted on retreating even if both sides suffered heavy losses. If this continued, the great demonic world would most likely be destroyed. However, the great demonic world would also collapse. Even so, Mo still insisted on fighting Lin Yun to the death. In the next few days, a fierce battle would break out between the two sides almost every 1 or 2 days. As the battle continued, the demonic abyss's disadvantage became more and more obvious. However, the Cloud Palace's side was not having it easy either. This was purely a matter of injuring the enemy by 1,000 and losing 800 of their own men. Although the Cloud Palace had a slight advantage, the casualties on their side could not be ignored. The entire battlefield was like a huge millstone, constantly crushing the lives of the participating warriors. Moreover, these people who died were not weak. The fall of Emperor Realm Masters was not an exception. The only people who could guarantee their survival on the battlefield were at least Ancestor Realm Masters. This was indeed the case. The vitality of Ancestor Realm Masters was extremely strong. If even Ancestor Realm Masters began to fall, it could only mean that the battle had reached its final moment. At present, the Ancestor Realm Masters could still hold on. Li Tian and Xiao Chen also sent news that they were rushing over to the great demonic world. Lin Yun didn't say anything about this. From Xiao Chen, Lin Yun already knew that the people behind this were really those old guys from the origin world. After confirming this matter, Lin Yun couldn't help but frown slightly. Lin Yun was confused about what those old guys from the origin world were thinking and what they wanted to do. She couldn't figure it out at all. Just like Xiao Chun and the others, Lin Yun couldn't figure out why those ancestors from the origin world wanted to provoke a war between the various cosmoses. Moreover, they wanted to erupt at the same time. Wouldn't this be a complete mess? As the protectors of this world, what was the purpose of the primogenitor's actions? Could it be that the war between the various cosmoses would benefit them in any way? She couldn't figure it out. No matter how she thought about it, it couldn't be the actions of the ancestors. However, the current situation obviously didn't allow Lin Yun to think too much about it. Every few days, He would take the initiative to attack, and Lin Yun had no choice but to face the enemy. Too much of her energy was tied up by He, so Lin Yun could only use most of her energy to deal with He. This guy was like a madman now. He just wanted to fight to the death with Lin Yun. Lin Yun didn't know what was wrong with him. On this day, He, who had only rested for 2 or 3 days, led the experts of the Devil Abyss to attack again. On the other hand, Lin Yun's side also began to lead the experts to meet the enemy step by step. The experts from both sides soared into the sky. A great battle was about to erupt. Standing at the front of the group, Lin Yun and He looked at each other. Recently, the two of them had fought countless times. Basically, Lin Yun had the upper hand, but He seemed to want to die. He didn't even think about retreating. Even if Lin Yun suppressed him, He still fought to the death. This time was no exception. Seeing Lin Yun, He prepared to attack without the slightest hesitation. A terrifying aura soared into the sky, pressing down on Lin Yun. At the same time, he shouted angrily, "Kill!" He didn't have the slightest intention of giving up. However, as soon as He's voice fell, hundreds of spatial spirit boats and starships rushed out from the spatial wormhole. Needless to say, Xiao Chun and the others had arrived. Xiao Chun and the others also used the shortest amount of time to reach the outside world. When Xiao Chun and the others appeared, He was stunned. At the same time, the spatial spirit boat that Xiao Chun, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor He arrived at the center of the camp above, blocking the attack of both sides. Looking at the sudden appearance of Xiao Chun and the others, He's eyes were cold. He said coldly, "Lin Yun, is this your method? If you think that you can make me retreat like this, then you're gravely mistaken. Kill." He still wanted to fight to the death. However, as soon as his voice fell, Xiao Chun, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor He slowly walked up to the deck. Xiao Chun looked at He and said coldly, "Are you sure you still want to fight?" After saying that, Xiao Chun, Dongfang Yun, and Ancestor He released a pressure that wasn't any weaker than He's. Judging from their auras, it was easy to tell that they were actually 3 world lord. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. End of chapter. Chapter 2747. With 3 world lords appearing at the same time, no one would be able to ignore such a deterrent force. Of course, it was the same for He. Facing Lin Yun, He might not be too afraid, but facing 4 world lords at the same time, no matter how arrogant He was, he probably knew that he had no chance of winning. At the level of a world lord, wanting to fight 4 world lords at the same time was simply wishful thinking. It could be said that it was almost impossible. As soon as his voice fell, Xiao Chun calmly looked at He. After a pause, he said, "Stop. There are some things that I hope everyone can sit down and talk about. It's not as simple as it seems on the surface." This time, Xiao Chun's purpose in coming here was not to kill He but to stop the battle between the 2 sides. Since he had confirmed that this matter was related to those old fellows from the origin world, he definitely could not allow He and the others to continue fighting like this. However, after hearing Xiao Chun's words, although He fell silent for a moment as if he was hesitating, it was only a moment later. Mo He's eyes blazed with anger as he said, "This king will not stop until I kill Lin Yun." Looking at Mo He's appearance, it seemed as if he had a deep hatred for Lin Yun. Even though Shao Chen, Ancestor He, and Dong Fang Yun, the three world lords had arrived, Mo He still had no intention of giving up. The hatred in his heart made Mo He seem as if he had lost his mind. Normally, when facing three world lords at the same time, it was obviously impossible to make such a choice, but Mo He had done so. Even though he was facing Shao Chen's group of four, Mo He still had no intention of stopping. As soon as his voice fell, Mo He no longer hesitated and attacked Lin Yun again. The hatred in his eyes seemed to burn the sky, and he did not show any mercy. Looking at Mo He's actions, Shao Chen did not know what had happened to him to make him hate Lin Yun so much. From the looks of it, he was even willing to perish together with Lin Yun to kill Lin Yun. However, regardless of the reason for Mo He's actions, since Shao Chen had come, it was obvious that he would not allow Mo He to succeed. Thus, when he saw Mo He attacking, Shao Chen coldly shouted, "Stubborn fool! Sirs, attack together. Capture him first." He had no intention of taking Mo He's life. After all, there was no point in killing Mo He here. Stopping the crazed Mo He was the most important thing for Shao Chen and the others to do. At the very least, they wanted to stop the battle and have everyone sit down and talk. Ancestor He and Dongfang Yun did not have any objections to Shao Chen's words. Then, the three of them attacked Mo He at the same time. The four great cosmos absolute beings attacked Mo He at the same time. For a moment, Mo He was completely suppressed. Shao Chen and the others deliberately held back and did not have any killing intent. Otherwise, Mo He would have been injured. As Shao Chen and the others attacked, the experts from the Great Wide World, the Red Wind World, and the Black Wheel World also attacked to stop the martialists from the Great Devil World. They did not have any killing intent when they attacked. They just wanted to stop the battle. With the strength of the four great cosmoses, the martialists from the Great Devil World were quickly subdued. There was also Mo, who was madly fighting against Shao Chen and the other three. Although he was facing four world lords at the same time, Mo obviously could not gain the upper hand. Knowing that he would lose, Mo did not intend to stop at all. He continued to attack Shao Chen and the other three. The hatred in Mo He's heart was extremely strong. Even Shao Chen found it strange. What could make Mo He want to kill Lin Yun so crazily? Even though he knew it was impossible, he was still unwilling to let go. It seemed that if he did not kill Lin Yun, the anger in his heart would not go away. Looking at the crazy Mo He, Shao Chen and the others naturally could not let him continue like this. They attacked with all their might. Shao Chen also shouted angrily, "Mo He, are you done being crazy? Things are not as simple as you think. Calm down." After saying that, Shao Chen displayed his sword realm and suppressed Mo He's combat strength. At the same time, Dongfang Yun, Ancestor He, and Lin Yun were not to be outdone. They also attacked and prepared to suppress Mo He. Four great cosmos absolute beings attacked at the same time. Even if Mo He wanted to fight to the death, he was not strong enough. Mo He really wanted to kill Lin Yun directly. Unfortunately, in the face of four great cosmos absolute beings, he was powerless. There was no way he could compete with them. His movements became more and more restricted. Seeing this, the demonic aura on Mo He's body surged crazily. Mo He, who was about to be subdued, actually became stronger at this moment. Seeing the change in Mo He, Shao Chen's eyebrows twitched. This guy was actually burning his blood essence. He was crazy. He was definitely crazy. Was he not hesitating to burn his blood essence to fight to the death with Lin Yun? Looking at the crazy Mo He, Shao Chen did not have time to think too much. He immediately shouted, "Stop him." He absolutely could not let Mo He burn his blood essence. Firstly, it was very difficult to control. Secondly, burning his blood essence would cause great damage to Mo He. If something went wrong, even if he was a great cosmos absolute being, he might die. The purpose of Xiao Chen's trip this time was not to kill Mo He. Dongfang Yun and Ancestor He were stunned when they heard that. Clearly, the two of them had never imagined that Mo He would choose to burn his essence blood to fight them at such a time. This was definitely something that only a madman would do. As his blood essence began to burn, Mo He's aura kept rising. However, Xiao Chen and the other three great cosmos absolute beings were clearly prepared. They did not give Mo He too much of a chance and immediately attacked to suppress him. The four great cosmos absolute beings attacked at the same time. Before Mo He could successfully burn his blood essence, the four great cosmos absolute beings' attacks arrived. Mo He wanted to resist, but with his strength alone, it was obvious that he could not resist the simultaneous attacks of four great cosmos absolute beings. The four attacks hit Mo He's body at the same time. For a moment, Mo He spat out a mouthful of blood. Xiao Chen took advantage of this opportunity to shout at Lin Yun, "Take him down!" Lin Yun naturally understood Xiao Chen's meaning. Therefore, when Xiao Chen spoke, Lin Yun had already taken the initiative to move. Her feet moved, and her figure instantly appeared beside Mo He. She wrapped her arms around him, and a huge amount of spiritual energy instantly enveloped Mo He's body. At the same time, Dongfang Yun and Ancestor He also took action. The three of them joined forces and finally controlled Mo He. Seeing that Mo He was successfully controlled, Xiao Chen breathed a sigh of relief. This time, when he saw Mo He again, this guy was indeed like a crazy demon. If the four of them had not joined forces, they probably would not have been able to do anything to him. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. End of chapter. Chapter 2748. Lin Yun, Ancestor He, and Dongfang Yun seized the opportunity to subdue Mo He. Mo He was suppressed by three World Lord. Even though Mo He was still trying his best to resist, he couldn't do anything under the combined suppression of Lin Yun and the other two. At the same time, Xiao Chen arrived in front of Mo He and said with a frown, "Can we sit down and talk?" Mo He's behavior was too strange. Xiao Chen didn't know if it was related to the origin world. However, when he heard Xiao Chen's words, Mo He replied coldly, "What's there to talk about? This king must kill Lin Yun." Mo He's killing intent towards Lin Yun had reached a terrifying level. It was as if he couldn't get rid of the resentment in his heart if he didn't kill Lin Yun. Xiao Chen and Lin Yun looked at each other and saw a trace of helplessness in each other's eyes. Lin Yun didn't know why Mo He was so overflowing with killing intent. During this time, Lin Yun hadn't taken the initiative to provoke Mo He, nor had she sent anyone to the great devil world. However, Mo He seemed to have lost his mind. This time, not only did he use all the strength of the great devil world to attack the outside world, but he also fought to the death with Xiao Chen. He didn't have any intention of retreating at all. It was as if he didn't care even if he had to die together with Lin Yun. What kind of hatred did he have to do such a thing? However, in Lin Yun's memories, the hatred between him and Mo He wasn't limited to this. Looking at Mo He, who was still overflowing with killing intent and whose eyes were red, Xiao Chen asked calmly, "Then tell me, why are you doing this? Even if you don't want to die together, you still want to kill brother Lin Yun. It's impossible that you don't have a deep hatred for him." Xiao Chen asked. Mo He couldn't break free from Lin Yun and the other two's control. However, he still shouted coldly, "Why? Ask him yourself. Ask him what despicable method he used to kill my son." Under Xiao Chen's questioning, the truth quickly came to light. The reason Mo He was acting so crazily was because his son had been killed. According to the traces left at the scene, Mo He was certain that the person who had done it was Lin Yun. Mo He only had one son. Since his son had been killed, it was understandable that Mo He was so angry. However, Xiao Chun had had a different opinion after hearing Mo He's words. According to Mo He, all the clues left at the scene pointed to one person, Lin Yun. However, Xiao Chun definitely didn't believe that Lin Yun had done it. It could be said that Xiao Chun trusted Lin Yun completely. Moreover, with Lin Yun's personality, if he had really done it, it was impossible for him to not admit it. Daring to do it but not daring to admit it was definitely not Lin Yun's character. Therefore, since Lin Yun said that this matter had nothing to do with him, Xiao Chun would definitely trust Lin Yun unconditionally. After all, he wasn't such a person. However, while Xiao Chun believed it, Mo He didn't believe it at all. In his heart, he was certain that Lin Yun had done it. He wouldn't believe it no matter what Lin Yun said. He only felt that it was Lin Yun's sophistry. Seeing that Mo He was still brimming with killing intent, Xiao Chun pondered for a moment. Then, he said, Mo He, this matter isn't as simple as you think. I have some guesses right now. How about we sit down and talk about it? You won't lose anything, right? Xiao Chun once again suggested that they sit down and talk. This time, Mo He didn't refuse. Of course, he couldn't refuse. After all, he had already been captured by Xiao Chun's group of 4. It was already impossible for him to attack. Moreover, Xiao Chun said that he had some guesses about this matter. This clearly attracted Mo He's interest. If Xiao Chun really knew some inside information, then Mo He would definitely want to know too. Love to read? I want to see what you can say. Mo He coldly snorted and said coldly. Although his attitude was still very cold, at least Mo He had agreed to sit down and talk. Seeing this, Xiao Chen's group of 4 connected with Mo He and went to Xiao Chen's spatial spirit boat. Since their world masters had already sat down to talk, the experts from the 5 great worlds naturally didn't make any move. The experts from the great devil world also quieted down. At least, before Mo He gave any new orders, the battlefield quickly regained its calm. No one knew what Xiao Chen's group of 5 were talking about. After all, they weren't qualified to participate in a discussion between 5 world masters, let alone know the content of the conversation. At this time, inside Xiao Chen's spatial spirit boat, the 5 of them sat together. Mo He's face was still gloomy as he said, "If you want to say something, then say it. If you don't give me an explanation for this matter, I won't stop." As soon as they arrived, Mo He made his attitude clear. It was impossible for him to not avenge his son's death. Xiao Chen didn't care about this and only said a few words indifferently. Mo He, don't you think that this matter is too strange? If it's really as you said, that your son was killed by Brother Lin Yun, then why would there be so much evidence left at the scene? Doesn't this make sense? If Lin Yun wanted to take action, why would there be so much evidence left behind to point to him? Also, what benefit would Lin Yun get from killing Mo He's son? Besides incurring Mo He's monstrous anger, what could Lin Yun and the Cloud Palace get? There were no benefits, and the whole matter was full of contradictions. This was obviously illogical. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Mo He didn't answer. His face was still cold, but it was obvious that he had also discovered that something was wrong. Mo He wasn't stupid. After calming down and thinking about it, he realized that Xiao Chen's words weren't unreasonable. However, if that was all, it was obviously not enough to convince Mo He. Next, Xiao Chen bluntly told Mo He about his guess and what had happened in the Blackwheel realm. What made Xiao Chen a little speechless was that Mo He didn't know that almost all the universes were in chaos. Everyone was fighting and battles were breaking out everywhere. Mo He didn't know anything about what was happening in the outside world. He hadn't paid attention to the outside world before. All he thought about was how to kill Lin Yun, destroy the Cloud Palace, and take revenge for his son. Therefore, he didn't know that all the universes in the outside world were in a fierce battle. Obviously, such a situation couldn't have happened naturally. Someone must be secretly manipulating it. In addition, according to the information he had obtained from Aunt May, it was basically certain that this matter was related to those old fellows in the origin world. The wars between the universes were deliberately instigated by the various primogenitors. This included the battle between Mo-he and Lin Yun. In this way, the death of Mo-he's son was most likely caused by the primogenitors of the origin world, or they had found someone to do it, just like Aunt May. Chapter 2749. Xiao Chun told Mo-he his guess and all the evidence he had. Mo-he's expression turned solemn when he heard what Xiao Chun had said. If things were really as Xiao Chun had said, then this matter was extremely serious. The primogenitor of the origin world? Xiao Chun, do you know how things will develop if that's really the case? At that time, I'm afraid all of us will be implicated. We might even face the danger of world destruction. Mo-he wasn't exaggerating. It was the truth. After all, what kind of place was the origin world? What kind of existences were the primogenitor of the origin world? If all of this was done by the primogenitor of the origin world, then the world would probably be destroyed. After all, the primogenitors had the ability to destroy the world. However, Mo-he still had his doubts about what Xiao Chun had said. It was very simple. The primogenitors of the origin world weren't completely united. The primogenitors of the Righteous Path Alliance and the Dark Epoch had been divided into two completely different camps due to their different ideologies. The Righteous Path Alliance and the Dark Epoch Alliance had been mortal enemies for countless years. It was impossible for them to cooperate. So, if this matter was really done by the primogenitors of the origin world, wouldn't the other side stop it? If the Righteous Path Alliance had started this war, the primogenitors of the Dark Epoch definitely wouldn't sit idly by. The same logic applied to the primogenitor of the origin world. So, Mo-he felt that there were many things that didn't make sense. Xiao Chun naturally had his own opinion about this. That was, the Dark Epoch Alliance and the Righteous Path Alliance had cooperated. They were supposed to be mortal enemies, but for some unknown reason, they had cooperated. Only in this way could it be possible to explain everything. However, Mo-he clearly didn't agree with Xiao Chun's opinion. He shook his head and refused. Impossible. It's impossible for the Righteous Path Alliance and the Dark Epoch Alliance to cooperate. It's not just me. Lin Yun should be very clear about this as well. Mo didn't think that there was any possibility of cooperation between the Righteous Path Alliance and the Dark Age because both sides were as incompatible as fire and water. Upon hearing his words, Lin Yun shook her head. Nothing is impossible in this world. We absolutely have no possibility of cooperation between the Righteous Tao Alliance and the Dark Age. That's only because there isn't enough reason. Once there is such a reason, why can't we cooperate? It was true that the Dark Age and the Righteous Tao Alliance were mortal enemies, but that didn't mean that there was no possibility of cooperation between the two sides. It was just that they hadn't found a reason to do so. Hearing Lin Yun's words, Mo-he fell silent. Indeed, what Lin Yun said made sense, but was it really possible? Also, what was the purpose of the primogenitor's actions? What can they gain? One had to know that battles were breaking out in all the universes. This was obviously not a good thing. What exactly were the primogenitors up to? Hearing Lin Yun's words, Mo-he fell into deep thought. After a long while, he raised his head and said, I want to make a trip to the origin world and see for myself what's going on. Right now, he didn't know what the primogenitors were thinking. The best method was naturally to make a trip to the origin world himself. However, Xiao Chun and the other three didn't agree with Mo-he's words. Right now, all kinds of evidence proved that this matter was related to those old fellows in the origin world. Under such circumstances, it was unwise to rashly go to the origin world without knowing anything. 100%. Who knew what those old fellows were up to? Therefore, Shao Chun and the other three didn't agree with Mohe's idea. For now, we should focus on stopping the spread of the war, Shao Chun said. Stopping the war between the universes was the most important task. As for the origin world, they definitely had to go there. However, they couldn't rashly go there. Otherwise, who knew what would happen? Hearing Shao Chen's words, Mohe calmed down. This was because the situation was much more serious than he had imagined. This was no longer a matter of taking revenge for his son. If things went wrong, the great devil world might be destroyed. Everyone present was a world lord. They all knew what would happen if the situation went out of control. Although the five of them had temporarily joined forces, in such a chaotic situation, who would be able to stay out of harm's way? Therefore, stopping the situation from developing further was the most important thing to solve right now. After saying that, Shao Chun didn't say anything else. Instead, he calmly looked at Mohe and waited for his answer. Under the gaze of Shao Chun and the other three, Mohe fell into silence. In this regard, Shao Chun and the other three weren't in a hurry. After thinking about it, Mohe looked up at the four and said, "Okay, we'll do as you say." It was a temporary agreement to cooperate. In the face of such a chaotic situation, it was naturally good to be able to unite more people. After all, it was very difficult to stop the development of the situation with the power of a single universe. However, now that Shao Chun, Lin Yun, Ancestor He, Dongfang Yun, and Mohe had joined forces, it was possible to stop the development of the situation. However, this was only the first step. What Shao Chun and the others really had to face were those old fellows from the origin world. However, they didn't have the time to think about this for the time being. Moreover, even though Shao Chun and the others had joined forces, it was no different from a fool's dream if they wanted to fight against the origin world with just this. After all, the origin world had been able to suppress the world for so many years and become a well-deserved holy land among the many universes. It was absolutely not because of some illusory belief, but because of its formidable strength. Especially those old fellows. Each of them was as terrifying as a monster. Even someone as strong as Lin Yun was afraid of the origin world. Therefore, it was impossible for Shao Chun and the other four to contend against the origin world with just the five of them alone. Because of this, Shao Chun didn't have the thought of getting in touch with the origin world right now. No matter what the old fellow's purpose was or what their reason was, Shao Chun didn't plan to find out for the time being. He wanted to solve the current problem first before dealing with the origin world. Since they had reached an agreement, Mohe suppressed the hatred in his heart for the time being. Since it was very likely that Lin Yun didn't do this and the current situation was like this, Mohe knew that he had to consider the overall situation. He couldn't continue to fight to the death with Lin Yun. Otherwise, it wouldn't benefit anyone. Hearing Mohe's words, Shao Chun smiled faintly. Things were going smoothly. It was good that they had taken the first step. Now they just needed to follow the plan. Chapter 2750. Mohe's nod made Shao Chun sigh in relief. After all, in such a situation, it was naturally good to have one more ally. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to stop all of this from happening. Shao Chun was indeed relieved. After all, in such a situation, it was naturally good to have one more ally. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to stop all of this from happening. As for the idea of everyone helping themselves, Shao Chun had never thought of it. The reason was very simple. It was because it was simply unrealistic. Wars were breaking out in all the universes. If they still wanted to stay out of it at this time, they would undoubtedly be courting death. Because in such a situation, who could guarantee that they wouldn't be implicated? At that time, even if Shao Chun guarded the Great Thousand Domains to the death, the result wouldn't be good. Therefore, the most important thing for Shao Chun was to actively unite the people of all the universes because this time, they would have to face the origin world. This was the origin of the world. If they didn't unite, they wouldn't have any chance of winning. Nodding, Xiao Qin smiled and said, "Welcome to the team." Xiao Qin welcomed Mo's participation. No matter what grudges they had in the past, in the face of a life-and-death crisis, everyone was very clear that only by letting go of the past grudges could they safely survive this calamity. Mo nodded in agreement with Xiao Qin's words and decided to temporarily put aside their past grudges. After reaching a consensus, the next step was naturally to rush to the other universes. Time was of the essence, and the situation was getting more and more dangerous. Although Xiao Qin and the other universes had united and formed an alliance, their strength was still too small compared to the origin world. Moreover, the other universes were still in a chaotic war. Only by stopping the war as soon as possible could they prevent the situation from developing in a more serious direction. Therefore, Xiao Qin immediately suggested that they immediately set off and rush to the other universes to rope in as many allies as possible. Lin Yun, Mo He, Ancestor He, and Dongfang Yun didn't refuse. However, because of the battle between Mo He and Lin Yun, the Devil Abyss and Cloud Palace had many injured people. Before leaving, they had to take care of them. The Cloud Palace was easy to deal with. After all, this was the macro world. They could just return to the Cloud Palace to recuperate. However, the people from the Demon Abyss were a little difficult to deal with. However, Lin Yun said that since they had formed an alliance, the Demon Abyss experts could also recuperate in the macro world. The Cloud Palace would arrange everything. Lin Yun took the initiative to express her goodwill. However, Mo did not accept it. Although he had temporarily put aside his previous hatred, it was still difficult for Mo to completely trust Lin Yun. After all, the enmity between them was not so easy to resolve. If it weren't for the special situation, Mo wouldn't have been so easily persuaded by Xiao Qin. Therefore, Mo straightforwardly refused Lin Yun's proposal. Mo planned to let the injured people from the Demon Abyss return to the Great Devil World to recuperate. Although the journey was long, there was no problem for these people to rush back to the Great Devil World. Moreover, the situation was chaotic now. These people could also play a role in guarding the Great Devil World to a certain extent. Who knew when the experts from the other universes would attack the Great Devil World? Under such circumstances, it wasn't strange for anything to happen. It wasn't unacceptable for a battle to break out for no reason. Therefore, Mo made such a decision. In this regard, Lin Yun didn't say much. It was fine if he didn't want to. In any case, Lin Yun didn't intend to force him. Soon, Mo and the others began to make preparations. The injured people from the Demon Abyss and Cloud Palace were evacuated one after another. They didn't need to prepare too many things. They just needed to settle the injured people from both sides. The Cloud Palace was quickly arranged. Then, the group left the Great World. After leaving the Great World's spatial passage, the injured people from the Demon Abyss took the starship and rushed towards the Great Devil World. Xiao Qin and the others rushed towards the Primordial World. Xiao Qin had always been in contact with Mu Lingxian. He also knew that Immortal Palace was fighting fiercely with the evil sect. Therefore, Immortal Palace was his first target. Xiao Qin did have his own selfish motives. The reason was simple. The Primordial World and the Great Thousand World were neighbors. If the Primordial World stabilized, it would definitely be good for the Great Thousand World. On the contrary, if the battle between Immortal Palace and the evil sect continued, it would be a threat to the safety of the Great Thousand World. His wife and parents were all in the Great Thousand World. Xiao Qin naturally had to ensure the safety of the Great Thousand World. Therefore, stopping the battle between Immortal Palace and the evil sect became Xiao Qin's top priority. Lin Yun and the others didn't reject Xiao Qin's idea. After all, the Black Wheel World and the Red Wind World had stopped fighting. The Great Thousand World and the Great Devil World had stopped fighting. Compared to the four of them, the The situation in the Great Thousand World was indeed much more dangerous. Therefore, it was normal for Xiao Chun to decide to go to the primordial world first. Everyone rushed towards the primordial world. Along the way, although they were in the endless starry sky, Xiao Chun and the others still saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. In the endless starry sky, there was an endless stretch of spatial spirit ships and starships floating aimlessly. With a single glance, one could tell that these spatial spirit ships and starships had been completely destroyed. There were wreckages everywhere, and this was clearly because of the battle. He didn't know which universe these starships belonged to, but from these broken starships and space spirit boats, it wasn't hard to imagine how fierce the battle must have been for such a result to appear. Standing on the deck, Xiao Chun and the others' spatial spirit ship sailed past the wreckage of the starship. Seeing the wreckage of the starships, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, Mo He and the others all revealed grave expressions. Mo He, who originally didn't feel anything, knew that Xiao Chun wasn't exaggerating at all when he saw the starships. The reality might even be worse than what Xiao Chun said. "I'm afraid there are over 1,000 starships and spatial spirit ships that have been destroyed," Ancestor He said indifferently. "Yes, and I'm afraid this is only the tip of the iceberg. There are more similar things happening in other places, or they have already happened," Xiao Chun replied indifferently. Battles were breaking out in all universes, so this kind of result was inevitable. Looking at the scene before them, Xiao Chun and the others felt that time was running out. If this continued, who knew how things would develop and whether there would be any way to stop it when the time came? The danger of world destruction. What are those old men from the origin world trying to do? Do they really want to destroy everything? Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2751. Even Lin Yun, Xiao Chun, and the others couldn't figure out the purpose of those old fellows from the origin world, no matter how hard they racked their brains. As the living beings that were born along with heaven and earth, no matter what those old fellows had in mind, they were still the origin world. Even if Lin Yun, Xiao Chun, and the others racked their brains, they still couldn't figure out the purpose of the old fellows from the origin world. As the origin world, they still couldn't figure out the purpose of the old fellows from the origin world. Regardless of whether they believed in the righteous path, the demonic path, or the evil path, these old fellows were still the protectors of the origin world. They had the same lifespan as the origin world, and they were also born from the origin world. The origin world had given these primogenitors the best of everything. They didn't even need to cultivate, yet they could already possess strength that surpassed the world lords. What kind of gift was this? So, what reason did these old fellows have to do such a thing? At the same time, they were inciting a war between the various universes. What good would this do to those old fellows? Could it be that the ultimate goal of these old fellows was to destroy the origin world? But what could they gain from it? Nothing at all. They couldn't figure out the purpose of the primogenitors' actions, but the scene before their eyes kept telling Xiao Chun and the others that all of this was really happening. The war between the various universes was currently locked in a stalemate. Perhaps countless lives would perish every second. If such a chaotic war continued, the final result would be that the living beings of the various universes would suffer heavy casualties. In the end, the origin world would be poisoned, and less than 10% of the living beings in the origin world would remain. Just imagine what a lifeless origin world would be like. If the origin world was water and the living beings were fish, then there would only be water and no fish. Understanding the result, Xiao Chun and the others sped up again. Especially after witnessing the destruction of numerous spaceships and spatial spirit boats, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others didn't want to waste even a second. After all, every minute they wasted would result in the loss of more lives. They sped up once more and rushed towards the primordial world. However, after experiencing that scene, it wasn't just Xiao Chun and the others. The people on the other spaceships and spatial spirit boats also saw that doomsday-like scene. Whether it was the Great World, the Great Demonic World, or the martialists of the Great Thousand World, everyone had a solemn expression in their hearts. They also understood more intuitively why their world master was so anxious. They did not encounter any obstacles along the way, but along the way, the expressions of Shao Chun and the others were extremely solemn. This was because, more than once, everyone had seen wreckage floating in the starry sky. There were even corpses of warriors. Even the corpses were floating in the starry sky, which showed how fierce the battle was. How much longer until we arrive? Standing on the deck, Shao Chun asked Xian Yuanling, 1 day at most. They would arrive at the primordial world in a day's time. This was already the fastest speed they could go. Moreover, there wasn't even the slightest delay on the way, let alone rest. Their speed was already very fast, but Shao Chun was still burning with anxiety. This was because if they stopped the primordial world, there were still other universes waiting for Shao Chun and the others to stop them. Although Shao Chun and the others seemed to be the alliance of the 5 universes and were already an extremely powerful force, Shao Chun knew very well that even if the 5 universes joined forces, they would still be in existence that could be destroyed with a flick of the finger in front of those old fellows from the origin world. Therefore, it wasn't enough. It was far from enough. They had to rope in more universes and gradually form the same sect. Only then would they have a chance to contend with the origin world and figure out the true intentions of those old fellows. Without saying anything more, the spatial spirit boat's speed had already reached its limit. Even the spaceships had been left far behind. Therefore, no matter how anxious Shao Chun was, he could only choose to wait patiently. While Shao Chun was silent, Lin Yun also came to the deck and said, "For many things, man proposes and God disposes. It's useless to be anxious. Just do your best." Sister Literature Network compared to Shao Chun, Lin Yun was obviously more composed. In response, Shao Chun nodded slightly but didn't say anything. That was the reason, but it was easier said than done to calm down. They hoped to reach the primordial world as soon as possible, even if it was just a second faster. However, time wouldn't change because of one's anxiety. After spending almost a day, they finally arrived at the spatial black hole of the primordial world. Without any hesitation, dozens of spatial spirit boats rushed into the spatial black hole. Although there were only dozens of spatial spirit boats and many spaceships behind, Shao Chun and the others didn't want to waste time. Just like that, the group quickly entered the primordial world. After entering the primordial world through the spatial black hole, Shao Chun, Lin Yun, Ancestor He, Mo He, and Dongfang Yun were stunned. The primordial world seemed to have changed completely. There were spatial cracks everywhere. At the same time, corpses, spaceships, and spatial spirit boats were everywhere. With a single glance, it wasn't hard to see what kind of desperate battle had taken place in the primordial world. Even though the 5 of them were world lords, they were still shocked by the scene before them. Dongfang Yun's mouth was slightly agape, but he couldn't say anything. Corpses and destruction were everywhere. It was like a river full of fallen leaves. The battle between Immortal Palace and Heretical Sect seemed to have reached its climax. Frowning, Shao Chun immediately spread out his spirit sense to search for the aftermath of the battle in the surroundings. Soon, Shao Chun sensed the faint aftermath of the battle to his left. It didn't seem close, but Shao Chun didn't hesitate. He immediately ordered everyone to rush to the left. With the spatial spirit boat's speed, they quickly arrived at the battlefield. However, Shao Chun didn't see Mu Lingxian or Heretical Sect Master, nor did he know where they were. However, Shao Chun still saw a familiar face in the crowd. It was Immortal Palace's progenitor, Gong Nantian. Gong Nantian was currently fighting a Heretical Sect progenitor. Seeing this, Shao Chun didn't hesitate in the slightest. His figure flickered, and he instantly appeared between the two. With Xiao Chen's current cultivation, it wasn't difficult for him to stop the battle between two progenitors. He immediately used the Sword Realm to envelop Gong Nantian and the heretical sect progenitor. Xiao Chen said with a gloomy expression. Stop. With that, the Sword Realm's power frantically suppressed Gong Nantian and the heretical sect progenitor's power. At the same time, Gong Nantian also saw the newcomer. He was stunned at first, but then he said in pleasant surprise, Brother Xiao Chen. Brother Nantian, please stop. I have something to say. Xiao Chen nodded at Gong Nantian. Although Gong Nantian didn't know why Xiao Chen said that, he still nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Xiao Chen left with his men. As time was tight, Xiao Chen didn't bring anyone else this time, not even Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing. He only called for Lin Yun, Mo He, and Ancestor He and left. 4 world lords were enough to control the situation. Of course, the main reason was still time. According to Gong Nanshan's location, Xiao Chen's group of 4 arrived on a continent in the primordial world. The continent was no longer as glorious as it used to be. The entire continent had practically collapsed, and the cultivators on it had either fled or died. As soon as they entered the continent, spatial cracks could be seen everywhere. The spiritual energy was extremely turbid, and the air was filled with the smell of blood. This was the smell of countless corpses and blood. The smell made one instinctively feel nauseous. After all, no one would like such a stench. Even a demonic Dao cultivator like Mauve couldn't help frowning. From this, one could see how strong the stench was. 7th place. I'm afraid this continent won't be able to last much longer, Ancestor He sighed as they hurried along. It definitely won't be able to endure such an intense battle, Mo He replied indifferently. After spending some time together, everyone had become familiar with each other. Moreover, because they all had the same goal and had already formed an alliance, they would chat a bit on a daily basis. This was especially true for Ancestor He and Mo He. The two of them didn't have any enmity with each other before, so their relationship was clearly a bit closer. Xiao Chen didn't pay too much attention to this. There were many unresolved problems right now, so Xiao Chen naturally wasn't in the mood to pay attention to these trivial matters. They hurried towards the center of the continent. Very soon, Xiao Chen's group saw 2 large camps. There were many starships and spatial spirit vessels, as well as 2 floating palaces. These 2 camps were clearly Immortal Palace and Heretical Sect. Mu Lingxian and Heretical Sect's sect master were there as well. Without any hesitation, Xiao Chen's group naturally headed towards Immortal Palace's camp first. When they approached Immortal Palace's camp, the 4 of them were stopped. However, after explaining their identities, they quickly met Mu Lingxian. Perhaps it was because of the continuous battles, but when they saw Mu Lingxian, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun both discovered that he was a bit weak. His face was also slightly pale. Although it wasn't much of a problem, it was indeed a pity for a world master to be reduced to this state. Brother Mu, let's stop. Things aren't as simple as you think. Without wasting any time, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun directly told Mu Lingxian everything that had happened. After hearing Lin Yun and Xiao Chen's words, Mu Lingxian wasn't surprised because he had already contacted Xiao Chen before. He immediately nodded and said, "Let's go talk to that person from Heretical Sect." Mu Lingxian had actually been waiting for Lin Yun and Xiao Chen to come. Now that the 2 of them had arrived, it was naturally time to end this meaningless battle. Xiao Chen nodded when he heard Mu Lingxian's words. Afterwards, the group left Immortal Palace's camp and arrived at Heretical Sect's camp nearby. However, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun's treatment was clearly much worse when they faced Heretical Sect. They didn't bring anyone else to show their sincerity. However, as soon as Xiao Chen's group of 5 arrived outside Heretical Sect's camp, numerous heretical sect experts surged out from the camp and instantly surrounded the 5 of them. Xiao Chen's group of 5 didn't change their expressions at all when they were surrounded by so many heretical sect experts. With their strength, these heretical sect experts posed no threat to them at all. Moreover, they weren't here to destroy heretical sect, so they didn't directly attack. Xiao Chen took the initiative to speak. "We have no ill intentions. Master of heretical sect, can you show yourself?" His attitude was rather gentle, but soon after Xiao Chen spoke, a cold voice rang out from heretical sect's camp. "There's nothing to talk about. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Heretical sect isn't afraid of battle." Chapter 2753. The heretical sect master's attitude was extremely unyielding. He clearly had no intention of talking to Xiao Chen's group. Xiao Chen frowned in response, then he coldly said, "Let's fight our way in." Xiao Chen's group of 5 world masters had arrived, yet the heretical sect master was still stubbornly resisting. Xiao Chen was clearly not going to be nice to him. Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and the others nodded heavily in agreement. The 5 of them attacked together. The 5 world masters were naturally not people the heretical sect could stop. Of course, Xiao Chen's group did not aim to kill, so they did not kill the heretical sect experts. They instantly charged into the heretic sect's camp. As Xiao Chen and the other 4 attacked, the heretic sect's master had no choice but to show himself. He was a handsome middle-aged man, and he was the heretic sect's master. Xiao Chen and the other 4 stopped what they were doing when he appeared and looked at the heretic sect's master before them. "Do you think the heretical sect has the ability to contend against the 5 universes? If you don't talk, we'll destroy your heretical sect today." Xiao Chen's goal was to sit down and negotiate. The heretical sect master's expression darkened when he saw Xiao Chen's sudden change in attitude. However, when he saw Xiao Chen's group of 5 world masters, he knew that he had no chance of victory. The 5 of them working together was enough to kill him. He might not even have the chance to escape. He coldly stared at the heretical sect master. Faced with Xiao Chen's gaze, the heretical sect master said with a dark expression, "What else is there to talk about?" He did not know why the heretical sect master had started a war against Immortal Palace, but the reason was probably not much different from Mo's. He had also been provoked by those old fellows from the origin world. Mo had mistakenly believed that Lin Yun was responsible for the death of his only son, which was why he had started a war against Cloud Palace. The heretical sect master's reason was probably because of these reasons as well. With an absolute advantage, Xiao Chen forcefully forced the heretical sect master to sit down and negotiate. At the same time, Mo Yuan, who had a good relationship with the heretical sect, spoke up. "The matter is a bit complicated. Let's sit down and talk." "Heh, Mo, when did you get mixed up with the righteous sect?" However, the heretical sect master sneered when he heard that. The heretical sect master was rather surprised that Mo had appeared here and seemed to have a good relationship with Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. However, he still agreed to Xiao Chen's suggestion in the end. Everyone sat down to talk. With Xiao Chen and the other world lords working together, the heretical sect master had no choice but to nod and agree. However, at the same time, Xiao Chen and the others told him the whole story. After hearing this, the heretical sect master fell into silence, just like Mo. The heretical sect master had never expected that the old fellows from the origin world would incite a war between the various universes. Xiao Chen and the others had arrived in the primordial world and were currently stopping the war between Immortal Hall and the heretical sect. However, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Dongfang Lin and the others who were returning to the Great Thousand Worlds not far from the primordial world had encountered danger. Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun allowed their children to return to the Great Thousand Worlds first out of fear that they would be in danger if they followed them. They even sent people to protect them. 187 Along the way, Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao deliberately avoided dangerous places, so they were safe. However, just as they were about to reach the Great Thousand Worlds, a black-clothed person directly blocked their spatial spirit ship. In the endless starry sky, Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao's spatial spirit ship was stopped by someone. Seeing this, several Sacred Palace experts came to the deck and frowned at the black-robed man before them. "Who are you?" The black-clothed person did not answer the Sacred Palace experts' questions. Moreover, the Sacred Palace experts could not even see his face clearly because he was wearing a large black robe. Since they did not know the identity of the person who had come and did not receive any answers from their questions, the Sacred Palace experts secretly became vigilant. At the same time, the black-clothed person who had remained silent all this time suddenly moved. He casually pointed his finger and a black ray of light flashed past, piercing the forehead of one of the Sacred Palace experts. He killed one of them with a single point of his finger. The other Sacred Palace experts were stunned when they saw this scene. A world master? Take them away, quick. With just a single point of his finger, they could sense that the black-clothed person in front of them was a world master. They knew that they had no chance of winning against a world master. Even if the Ancestor Realm experts of the Sacred Palace were present, they would not be able to contend against this person, let alone the fact that they were only Emperor Realm Masters. With a World Master intercepting them here, their first choice was naturally to run away without any hesitation. However, in front of a World Master, even running away seemed so powerless and useless. Therefore, as soon as the Sacred Palace experts finished speaking, the black-clothed person did not move at all, but they felt a terrifying pressure instantly enveloping the entire starship. Terrifying black rays of light also shot out from all directions, instantly killing the experts on the deck. After dealing with the Sacred Palace experts on the deck, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Dongfang Lin, who were hiding in the cabin, were naturally not spared. In other words, the mysterious black-clothed person's target was actually Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. Ignoring the corpses on the deck, the black-clothed person took a step forward and instantly appeared in the cabin. Looking at the black-clothed person who suddenly appeared, Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao shielded Dongfang Lin behind them. Even so, the brothers' faces were still extremely solemn. This was especially so for Xiao Yao. With his intelligence, he had long realized that something big must have happened in the outside world. His father, Xiao Chen, did not tell the two of them too much. After all, at their age, they were far from being qualified to know such things. However, Xiao Yao still guessed that something big must have happened in the outside world. Even his father, Xiao Chen, was exhausted from dealing with it. The two of them were probably involuntarily involved in this matter. Through the black-clothed person, they seemed to sense a pair of eyes staring at the three of them. However, before Xiao Yao could speak, the black-clothed person gently waved his hand and immediately knocked out Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Dongfang Lin. Not killing the three of them confirmed that the black-clothed person's target was the three of them. Then, the black-clothed person quickly disappeared on the spot with the spatial spirit ship, disappearing into the endless starry sky. Chapter 2754. No one knew that Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Dongfang Lin had gone missing because the others who had traveled with them had all been killed by the mysterious black-robed man. The Saint Palace cultivators that Xiao Chen had arranged had no power to fight back against a world lord. As a result, Xiao Chen, who was currently in the Hong Meng world, had no idea that Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Dongfang Lin were in danger again. At this moment, Xiao Chen was discussing matters with the evil sect's master. Under the efforts of Xiao Chen and the others, the master of heretical sect had indeed temporarily stopped his battle against Immortal Palace. However, he did not agree to the alliance. There was nothing Xiao Chen and the others could do about this. They could only continue to deal with him. Whether it was Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, Dong Fongyun, or the others, they all knew that they had to rope in as many allies as possible to stand a chance against the Origin world. However, just as Xiao Chen and the others were doing their best to rope in the evil sect and Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao had been kidnapped, something major had happened in the Great World far away from the Hongmeng world. The overlord of the Great World, Yun Palace, had been attacked. In the end, Yun Palace, which had no ancestor realm cultivators guarding it, was destroyed in an instant. Lin Feng, Lin Shui, Lu Bingning, Qing Zhu, and Lin Yun's family had been kidnapped. The attack had come without warning, and Yun Palace's rear could be said to be empty. Lin Yuan, Li Tian, the monk, the Taoist priest, and the other ancestor realm cultivators of Yun Palace had all been taken to the Hongmeng world by Lin Yun. There was only one ancestor realm cultivator left in Yun Palace. This time, there were several mysterious black-robed people attacking Yun Palace. There weren't many of them, but what was frightening was that they were all world lords. None of them were weaker than Lin Yun, Xiao Chen, and the others. Faced with the attack of several world lords, the Cloud Palace, which did not have any great beings guarding it to begin with, was easily taken down without any resistance. It was obvious that these mysterious people in black were attacking the Yun Palace because of Lin Yun's family, Lin Feng and Lin Shui, as well as Lu Bingning, Qing Zhu and other Lin Yun's wives. The news of the Cloud Palace's capture and the abduction of Lin Yun's family quickly spread throughout the outside world. The major forces in the outside world were naturally shocked by this news. After all, the Cloud Palace was the guardian of the outside world. If even the Cloud Palace was defeated so easily, one could imagine how powerful these people were. Moreover, through this incident, it was not difficult to guess how powerful the forces behind these people were. It should be known that mobilizing several world lords at once was definitely not something that ordinary people could do. Even the Cloud Palace, the Immortal Palace, and the Holy Palace, these overlords might not be able to do such a thing. What was even more unexpected was that in addition to the outside world, the Black Wheel world, the Red Wind world, the Great Demonic world, and the Great Thousand world were attacked by mysterious experts almost at the same time. The purpose of these mysterious experts was also very clear. They targeted the overlord forces like the Holy Palace and the Demonic Abyss. After they succeeded, they abducted the families of Xiao Chen and the other world lord. Without exception, the mysterious great beings who launched attacks on these overlords were all existences at the level of world lord. They launched attacks on several universes at the same time, and it was estimated that the number of world lords involved was more than 20. With such strength, the Holy Palace and the Demonic Abyss had no chance of resisting. The Sacred Palace of the Great Thousand World had just experienced a great battle. The entire Sacred Palace could be said to be a mess, and many Sacred Palace disciples had died in the battle. However, it was clear that the mysterious experts who launched the attack had no intention of destroying the Sacred Palace. After the battle ended, they did not stay for long. Instead, they left directly after abducting Qin Shuru, Fairy Baihua, Xiao Qing, and Bai Ruiyue. It was as if these mysterious experts did not care about the existence of the Sacred Palace. Their real purpose was to attack Xiao Chen's family, just like the people who attacked the outside world. No one from the Sacred Palace could do anything to stop Xiao Chen's family members from being taken away. After everything had calmed down, one of the Sacred Palace elders sent a message to Xiao Chen through a voice transmission talisman with a gloomy expression on his face. Such a big thing had happened, and the people who had been abducted were Xiao Chen's family. They certainly did not dare to hide this matter. At the same time, Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, Dongfang Yun, Mo He, and Ancestor He, who were in the Hongmeng world, all received messages from their respective sections. After hearing the news, the expressions of Xiao Chen and the others instantly changed, especially Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. Those who were familiar with them knew how much they valued their family. Now that their family had been abducted by mysterious people, it was easy to imagine how they would feel. Xiao Chen and Lin Yun looked gloomy. The sudden turn of events had made Xiao Chen and the others panic. Their families had been taken away, and their lives were in danger. It was only natural that Xiao Chen and Lin Yun would not be able to calm down. Xiao Chen, who had been in the middle of discussing the alliance, shattered the chair he was sitting on after receiving the news. His expression was extremely gloomy. Similarly, Lin Yun, Dongfang Yun, Ancestor He, and Mo He's expressions were extremely ugly. Looking at the pale faces of Lin Yun and Xiao Chen, Mu Lingxian said, "Since they only kidnapped them, I don't think the origin world will kill them so quickly. Perhaps they kidnapped your families to force you to submit. This is the only good news." Mu Lingxian could only comfort them. However, what he said wasn't unreasonable. Since the origin world only sent people to kidnap Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and Mo He's families and didn't kill them on the spot, it meant that Qin Shuru, Lu Bingning, and the others were still useful in the eyes of the old men of the origin world. In this way, since they were still useful, the origin world wouldn't kill them so quickly. This was the only good news for Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. However, even so, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun's mood still didn't improve. Although it was the truth, it didn't change anything. Moreover, the most important thing now was that since the origin world had taken action, their goal must be to stop Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and the others from taking action. However, their current alliance couldn't compete with the origin world at all. Looking at the operation this time, the people sent by the origin world were all world lord. There were more than 20 of them. On the other hand, Xiao Chen's group only had 6 people, including the evil sex master. It was self-evident how big the gap was. It was undeniable that besides kidnapping Lu Bingning, Qin Shuru, and the others, the origin world's operation was also to show Xiao Chen and the others their strength. They intended to make Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and the others shrink back and not make any unnecessary resistance. They should just follow the origin world's arrangement. They shouldn't have any unrealistic thoughts and shouldn't disobey any of the origin world's decisions. However, if they followed the origin world's arrangement, Xiao Chen and the others didn't dare to imagine what the final result would be. At that time, except for the origin world, perhaps all the other universes in this world would become a hell on earth. Up until now, what the origin world had done was almost destroying the world. The wise result was destruction. However, Xiao Chen and the others knew they couldn't do that. The origin world's response was like a powerful punch that completely stunned Xiao Chen and the others. Under the origin world's attack, Xiao Chen and the others found that they were so powerless. They didn't have the chance to react before the origin world got what it wanted. Judging from the strength of both sides, Xiao Chen and the others didn't seem to have any chance to resist the origin world. They were depressed. Xiao Chen and the others were even a little confused about the future. Could they really resist the origin world? Could they resist those primal ancestors who had existed for so many years and were born together with the world? There was no answer and no confidence. The 6 world lords, the masters of the 6 universes, were all gathered here. Under Ancestor Mu's gaze, Xiao Chen and the others' eyes were filled with vigilance. However, what he said next made Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and the others dumbfounded. Their hearts were filled with extreme shock. "That's right," Lin Yun said in a calm and indifferent voice. However, what he said next left Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and the others dumbfounded. "Go? Haha. Originally, you don't have the right to know these things. However, since you've asked, I can tell you." The rules and living beings in this world have existed for too long. Many things and rules have become rotten. What the origin world wants to do this time is to create a new world and new living beings. It will cause a tremendous change in this world and allow everyone to experience a qualitative leap. This is evolution, the evolution of life. In order to achieve this goal, we must destroy everything before we can create a new world. Do you understand what I'm saying? Chapter 27:57. Shao Chun and the others were dumbfounded when they heard his word. Was this the reason why the Origin Realm had not hesitated to mobilize the various universes to start a war? Was this the reason why the Origin Realm had not hesitated to mobilize all the universes to start a war? Shao Chun and the others were dumbfounded when they heard his word. Was this the reason why the Origin Realm had not hesitated to mobilize the various universes to start a war? Was this the reason why the Origin Realm had not hesitated to mobilize all the universes to start a war? And their purpose in doing so was to cause the deaths of many cultivators in this world through war, so as to complete their theory of creating a new world from the ruins? Just for this reason, the Origin world didn't hesitate to sacrifice the lives of so many cultivators and turn the various universes into rivers of blood and mountains of corpses? Shao Chun was the first to come back to his senses. He had never imagined that the Origin world would do this for such a purpose. In Shao Chun's opinion, it was simply ridiculous. He immediately cursed angrily. It's a bunch of nonsense. You didn't hesitate to let so many people die for such an empty excuse? Is this the new world you speak of? A new world built with countless corpses and blood? Childish. Any change requires sacrifice, said Ancestor Mu with a disdainful smile. He obviously didn't agree with Shao Chun's theory. He only felt that Shao Chun was too childish and idealistic. Any change and evolution required sacrifice. Sacrifice? Yes, that's right. Any change requires sacrifice, but that's just your wishful thinking. Can you guarantee that the new world will be better than the current world if you make such a huge sacrifice? Can you represent the opinions of all living beings in the world? This world belongs to all living beings, not your origin world. Sacrifice was right, but what right did the old fellows of the origin world have to make such a decision for all living beings? Moreover, they had to pay with their lives for it. The primogenitors of the origin world didn't have that right. However, Ancestor Mu sneered in response. Since the beginning of the world, forests were born. Thousands of races stood in great numbers. The human race, the god race, the ghost race, the devil race, and all the other races coexisted in this world. However, the living beings in the world aren't perfect. They have 7 emotions and 6 desires, and emotions make people greedy, leading to endless wars in this world. Fathers and sons can be seen killing each other, and brothers can be seen everywhere. This is the root of all living beings, and also the source of all chaos in this world. As for us, what we want to create is a world where there is no more war. All living beings will have no emotions or desires. Only then will the world be at peace. That is the true peace and prosperity. What a joke. You are actually so naive. Don't you want to see the birth of a world where there is no more war? Patriarch Mu spoke leisurely. When he talked about the new world, his eyes were filled with hope. It was as if the new world was right in front of him. At that time, people would no longer have lust, and there would be no more fighting. Everywhere would be a peaceful scene. However, after listening to Ancestor Mu, Shao Chun wasn't convinced. Instead, he said with more disdain, without emotions, what's the difference between humans and beasts? Even beasts have emotions, let alone humans. According to what you said, I'm afraid that all living beings in this world won't be living beings anymore. They'll just be walking corpses that will only listen to the orders of the origin world. Do you want to create a world without war or a world that will always be under your control? At that time, Will all living beings in this world become the slaves of the origin world? They will be willing to be enslaved by you and become walking corpses that will only listen to your orders. If it's a new world like that, what's the point? It's the world of the origin world. It's not the world that we want. The old men of the origin world wanted to create a new world to erase the emotions and desires of all living beings in this world. They wanted to make them emotionless people. To Xiao Chen, it was a big joke. Because if that happened, would humans still be considered humans? After Xiao Chen said that, Lin Yun sneered and said, "Tsk tisk, you've been talking for a long time. Aren't you just selfish? If you want to create a new world, why don't you erase your emotions and desires first?" Ridiculous. Lin Yun's words hit the nail on the head. Since Ancestor Mu and the other ancestors thought that all living beings in this world weren't perfect and the emotions and desires were the root of their inferiority, it was because of the emotions and desires. It was precisely because of the existence of the 7 emotions and 6 desires that there were wars in this world. Whether it was for territory, cultivation resources, women, or various other reasons, wars would erupt. The reason for all of this was the 7 emotions and 6 desires of humans. However, according to Ancestor Mu's words, the emotions and desires were the root of humans' inferiority and the root of all the chaos in this world. Why didn't Ancestor Mu and the other ancestors erase their emotions and desires first? Hearing Lin Yun's words, Ancestor Mu's eyes finally flashed with anger. He looked at Lin Yun coldly and said, "Humph, I've erased my emotions and desires long ago. I don't need you to tell me that." "Oh really? Then why would a person without 7 emotions and 6 desires get angry?" "Anger is also a manifestation of emotions and desires, Lord Ancestor Mu," Lin Yun replied with a chuckle. "People without emotions and desires wouldn't get angry or be happy." However, Ancestor Mu was clearly angry just now. This proved that his emotions and desires hadn't been erased. This was also the most ironic part. The new world you want to create is a beautiful place without war. Emotions and desires have become the root of all the chaos. Since you know all of this, why don't you, the creators, erase the root of all the chaos? Ancestor Mu was rendered speechless by Lin Yun's words. The coldness in his eyes intensified, but he quickly controlled it. As an ancestor who had lived for so many years, his control of his emotions had naturally reached the point of perfection. Since Ancestor Mu didn't have the upper hand in the argument, he looked at Lin Yun and Xiao Chen coldly and said, "Stubborn. Since you think that I'm wrong, prove everything with facts. Those warriors who died in battle and were reborn are the most perfect life forms. Next, you will experience it for yourselves." Ancestor Mu said and pointed his finger forward. In an instant, a black hole appeared before him. Then, a terrifying aura dispersed from the black hole. Xiao Chen and the others were slightly taken aback. At the same time, Ancestor Mu's words made Xiao Chen and the others suspicious. Warriors who died in battle and were reborn. What did that mean? Could it be that you're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel? Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.